5, 6, 7, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Walk. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, bend. Up, bend. Up. Walk, walk, walk and walk. 1, 2. 럽고니 맞으면 헛. Yes. 럽, up. 1, 2, 3. Last step. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Walk. 1, 2. Relax. Go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Jump. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Jump. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Back roll. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last time अच्छी किया नी आमची भी जुदी मापे step दी ते बता music दा चिका साच बेगे तो बोला Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On this joyous occasion, as part of commemorating the 10th year royal wedding anniversary, we bring to you the live broadcast of first of its kind, the Snowman race, where 20 women representing 20 Dzongkhag will be competing, racing for climate at Gasa Dzongkhag. We bring to you live race of the show. Here with me in the studio, right here from the BBS studio, my name is Sangeet Shafel, and along with me is my co-anchor Digi Chodin, as well as our guest Namge Chodin, volunteer at the Global Shapers Tempu Club. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Digi, would you like to?
Let's the tambara the darigi namisami ke chuigi ka chuigi the nim acha dumi yongi namisami ka chuigi nimla the myo ngadere moche choda the myo geltin namni lo namni tashing asel zebigi the tashibigi nimdi khalo tambara acha balin nam sumgi khatholela tashilegmen the shudo session la the didachiga the acha chanda lezingi the zinjong dochingi zubi acha lejib yongi khathole the darigi tashibigi nimdi khalo the tawsachi semgi dinlerala the tashilegmen phido session la the daring ache te nge thongi lerim tangara na charo sangi chofel the letaru na ngi charo namgi chorin la tangachi sumgi khathule darigi the inkenal bewachin the snowman race mo sange the snowman race the jongkhanal bewachin la the ganjukki the tendu lerim digi selshbenigi the kokap thopchi nami sami the same guy se shuni the taringa chi tuin the chusini de chi the nyathongi lerim dila nami sami la the dubdechen be nalma the phusubi gi rawayu se shunla las namge the tarigi lerim college la
Kuzambo Diki and good morning Sangi.
Good morning.
Te ta ngarigi mi bewachin namgi chuje se la villa. Te nganalu tempulu yumegi najin gidetsen Global Shapers Tempu Hub semi de da cha tarila be do seshunila. Te ta nalepa inkina shuwachin la. Good morning. My name is Namgi Choden and I'm a member of a voluntary youth association group called the Global Shapers Tempu Hub. As a group, we have carried out a couple of climate action advocacy program, particularly in collaboration with the UNRC's office here, where we have gone to 2 colleges so far to impart climate action literacy to college-age students. As a citizen, as a woman myself, I am invested as well as vested in the current discussion on climate change, and today is a wonderful opportunity for me to be here and to share a little more about the intersection of gender and climate. Tetarina nga Snowman dakjung isada juk dakshet sokdegibe 남신예다 주와다 암수기 바나루 데와카치 유베나 아니기 콜레 충쿠치 수나세 충쿠치 랍나세 나루 랍니디기뱅아나 히치 세슈닐라.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm glad that you brought up the themes of today's Snowman race. 20 women representing 20 Dzongkhags, all the 20 Dzongkhags here in Bhutan, as well as women. Women race for climate. These are the themes for today's particular race. We have races from 20 Dzongkhags. The youngest one, I believe, is Lochigu Mela, 19 years of age. And they will be representing each Dzongkhag. And specifically in terms of climate change, it impacts women a lot more, as I've been told. So Nambiya, would you like to elaborate on that a little bit?
Right. Well, I suppose we'll get into that a little later in the conversation. But you're absolutely right, Sangye. First of all, so there are two aspects to it when it comes to the immediate impacts of climate change. So we're thinking about natural disasters, for example, or the impact of livelihoods, particularly in the agricultural sector due to climate change. There are different ways in which men and women are impacted. And it's important to think about how women are very specifically impacted because of these occurrences. But at the same time, it's also good to think about how women uniquely contribute to climate change action and mitigation. So I suppose we will be going more into that later.
Yes, we will. Yes, we definitely will. Because the theme is climate change. And 20 women representing 20 Dzongkhags racing in Gasa. The flag off is at 8 a.m. sharp, and we will be starting very soon. Hopefully we'll get some images from Gasa, live from Gasa. But in the meantime, why Bhutan? Obviously, we're going to get into the climate change and how it impacts women and men, more so women, as I've been told. But why Bhutan and why Gasa?
So that's for me.
That's for you.
Of course. All right, Sangye. So first of all, why Bhutan? Bhutan is a landlocked country with a very fragile mountainous ecosystem. And we also rely very highly on climate-sensitive sectors, particularly hydropower and agriculture, as I mentioned before. So Bhutan is particularly vulnerable to the worst impacts of climate change. And we're also a least developing country. We're going to graduate in 2023, but as of now, we're still in that category. So we often lack the resources and the capacity to address the challenges that climate change brings about. But that doesn't mean that we have not done our part, especially in terms of our long-standing history of climate action, and that has also garnered Bhutan a lot of international appreciation. So that is why, that's how I would answer the first question.
Just to cut you short, we have some live image from Gasa. As you see, the 20 women representing 20 Dzongkhags are lined up at the starting point, which is going to be from Gasa Tsachu parking lot. And recently I did go up there with the team, with the Snowman Race Secretary team to survey the place. And the Gasa Tsachu, as we all know, has been swept away by the flood. And it's devastating. And one of the other sub-themes of this particular race is to promote Gasa Tsachu, and especially in terms of how climate change affects these kind of places. And we just saw live there, and once again we're seeing right there at the starting point from the parking lot. Hopefully we'll see some images of Gasa Tsachu and how it's no longer there anymore. It's such a saddening sight to see, but there we see. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, just as a reminder, this is first of its kind in this race in terms of how it's covered. We are covering this race through Zoom Live, as well as the first of its kind in terms of 20 women racing for climate change. In terms of mitigation of climate change and awareness of climate change. Such an interesting sight to see there. We see the Bhutan flag as well as the runners preparing, warming up, and the flag off will be at around 8 a.m. sharp.
Yes.
Quite exciting.
That is very exciting.
Las da kariche sange da ro sange da telena namgi khatule te tarigi lerim te iminale ngache ta tarigi ganjuki te tendugi lerim dinalo ngache amchu nyarame mo namge ngache amchu slabdo mo ngache amchu disugira te dinalo te tendur be te tarigi lerim dinalo amchu chaachagi tendale miktigi kachwe goden thabgobi na se te di kolero hisansave te namgi ge shude te sange ge shude te dumrachi ngar khatule shuwachin ta ngachera namshi juwagi nalo te donglem begop te ngache karagi genku I te iminale ngache amchu disugi tendale di shibumla te genku thepchera ba de disu donglem begop te namisami keche se shuni te iminale te disugi ta kachigi nalo ta ngache namshi juchi disu donglem begop mo donglem disu begop mo sewachin la ta disu ngache ranjingi kengin disu jumbigi kablo tele ngache sanam le tembigi disu kangil jumbigi kablo ngache amchu disugi tendale di te disu donglem begop la ta tarigi tilu bewachin nami samila te metha mebigi ta tilu jursunu se shuni debendigi ta ngache kara chiga nyamrup ki tholel te tarigi khanjuki lerimdi na lo tekhato nimdi sungshu tele ngache nale pha beru ngache gi namshi jurchi gi nalo donglendi ngache amchu disuge genku dindi badigi te donglendi besup sogi khelang begop tela te namsam khache te tarigi ta namshi khanjuki tendu dinalo te ro tekhato me jonga khechi gi nale te amchu nambi sami dingdi panyam ngerambegi amchu chacha khechigi te tendu beome se shuni te dinale namsami yamse cheu kashdu sawajin te jenshora kelo chugume mola ta ngache bewachin ta udu tha chenigi dizum mela pa tatna pa dita bewachin chungshora te kelo chugu tele ta genshora bewachin kelo ngapchume mola namge nami sami ta ngerando la ta toyama tendu bemi dusu ta tendu beni gutsuni bede tenal pa dita uchi panyam chikela oi tash amchu disu ngeramira se panyam chikome ta nalma lerimde te nabugila nami sami te iminale lerim zimi ta nangi am ngachi amchu disugila panyam da ngerangi thole tari tendu nal ngachige tendu bedo ose no sam tandigila te zina onoigi te rawa tari na ngachi desingi khatole bomber kedo mor sange
Teribari. And I've been just told that the race is about to start. Just as a reminder to the audience that this race starts from Gasa Sachu all the way to Gasa Zone, but not directly following the road leading to Gasa Zone. At some point, they will be trailing off to the trail. The total distance is about 17.5 kilometers. That's quite a feat, especially in Gasa Zongkhag at that particular altitude. This is going to be quite challenging, but I think we have the 20 women from representing 20 Zongkhags all ready and all set to tackle on this particular race.
Yes, Sange. And remember, we had an opportunity to speak with the wonderful, I think about 16 of them,
That's right.
racers. De ngache na momi hema ngache ko chudu de chin ko na tempo o ye pleten de ngache che bala
las
te kongi kachilap de se wachin ta ngache gi telu race se tendur zum chi belap me mola te kongi be wachin ti ta race zumbe membe te ta ko they running in solidarity ta ko chikabe judo te tendur zumbe mema atsinga chigi tari so so be
tangachra gawa shide kara
Yes.
te tendur digi thole nyoni me mola
Listen,
Yes.
I need to cut you guys off. I've been just told the race is about to start and they're waiting on us. So let's cut to the images from Gasa Sachu parking lot as they're gonna start. There we see they're right about to flag off. It's gonna be an exciting race. There we go. The flag off is there and the ladies are running.
amchu disulu ngache ngerangi thole tenal mata dola ngache
And they're off. And just as a reminder once again to the audience, because we are doing this for the first time in terms of coverage through Zoom Live, the network connection might be interrupted in between, but please bear with us. We will try to cover this particular race as well as possible, as much as possible, as exclusive as possible.
Las tatato ngachi tatogi tengyo thongi lemde te zoom gindel gi tholela te gorinta phudo te kotamba mola de sange tari zoom gi te ler nge thombe gorinta mi kotamba iminal zoom gi thole gorinta mi kotamba te bendigi the pana kom tete the gindel gi tab madure junga meshela degi kablo ta ler zimi dusugi te gomma to zeba jego se shunila ta ngache tari sago tharin sa te gasa jongha zoom nalo zoom gi thole de zoom gi tendo nge thombe gorin tab bedalo te tab madu tete achirila te gindel gi tab madu thong de kablo nabo gi la kara te gomma to se shunila.
Let's to continue. We were talking about not just being a race, but women racing for climate in terms of awareness of climate change, mitigation in each particular zone. You can continue on that.
Right. So the theme of the run today is also women as drivers of climate change, and as you might have seen in some of posters across the social media platforms, the Snowman race itself, and particularly this one, is based on the vision of His Majesty to have Bhutan as a climate smart, a climate resilient society, but also to bring attention to the condition and the situation of our highlanders, who are often quite vulnerable to the adverse effects of climate change in Bebala. So I think there are a couple of things that are interconnected, but a lot to reflect on as well. And your previous question on why Gasa, well, I think it's wonderful that you have been there personally. And to be frank, I've never been to Gasa.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, and I would love to, and I thought I'll perhaps do the next Snowman run myself.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
But maybe in the next 2 years.
So can we? Is it accurate to assess that this is going to be an annual event?
Well, what I had some interesting comments about that. There were actually lots of women who were very interested. So how I see this going in the couple of years is actually an open race where a woman, anybody who's interested to run, can take part in a climate race. Okay. So that's a possibility lah.
Well, that's exciting to see. Go ahead, Nikki.
Then tanamge tarigi nalo jongha khechigi nale kho am sansa du mola am chu ngerami am sansa du an bedalo ta dinalu khongi ta kho chak chu khade be mola
las mapa ani chuwadi ngage khonu thila te khona jongkha rire nale na thimpule be ikuchi tanshina be to yume sukara du se tishina be tele khona chathu chachop mela jongkha gibe te jongkha sum de chinale unfortunately themasubela te ani beni digi na thimpule beru sani jenkhale beru ko amsu jeme sugibe ngagi juge se ane belapshina ngachi jongkha sum de chula ko jongkha dinale yu tenale mensichiru ko jongkha digi ngotsab be judola and the three jongkhaks I believe are Samtse, Sarpang and Samdrup Jongkharla.
That's right. I was also there when we were talking with the women runners. It was due to the COVID protocol. They could not come, especially these were the regions where from the border regions, and that's the reason they could not come and participate. But regardless, they had representatives from Thimphu, runners from Thimphu, who would represent those particular zonghaks.
Nami sabi ngera me mola ta zonghak ngachara zonghak dinale mendera beru tero zonghak dinale I so ite janga zonghak gibe te ngosa berigi tembodalo namso ngera da te panyam kyo gopchi me ta amchu dinalo ngachi tendu bimi khwa khechi ginale te khoi khatule samsha berura khoi besup sege dizum lotop judo gala namge Timatse ro ko namisame Himalaya banju na lucha mato thale shichira ko amsu mamgira tele laluchi trail running se ngache bebachin not only that la te tapena ben ngache phajodi
jo be ngache phajo din jogo be so che kadichi na thu mo la ngache lam jo be jo te khondi analu jup mela so that's trail running la
okay
te hani zum bimi hani zum bebu yumi ki amchu sedu te laluchi ro spots the hiking trekking the sunna nam semeto wa yume dubala te ko hani zum gi amchu kechi chikalu dombe be da tarigi ngachi gi race ti nam semeto wa chito to chi oni me senga de anivera no de la
las kariche nam sam tendera ta nam sam ngerang gi thole ta to chi ngachi thomme na le mosla
nam Gasa such a guest house ki sa gona mela
las genchim gi bolakha le mosla ngache ya ma hi thanglap ke la ngaya Gasa lu chachi bim chechila de chachu bamba hema chungko de lor sumbai na jibana de tamela tele hero ma ebe.
So as we can see the first leading the race is just passing through the guest house. Fortunately, the flood hasn't reached up to the guest house. Obviously, all the hot springs have been washed away, but the guest house still remain. It's still a devastating thing to see, witness when you're up there. You know that Sachu was there at one point, and when you see it, it's all river. And such a saddening moment to see that. But this is the reason why the race is happening, to make awareness of climate change and the devastating effects of climate change. And these are the small little things, small little effects all around the world, internationally, effects like these that climate change has.
Right, and it is happening right in front of our eyes. It's happening right in our lifetime in Bebala. Te ngachigi zamling nalu gekap namsame peljo kompe jo mitsuna loe mi lalu chidula kongi beba chin namshin yata juba se mi di shob inse te tizumbe mi sa nebe la mi dubala te ngache Dichugi lo nalu la 2021 nalu IPCC report se mi chithain bala te ani IPCC report se me dinalu zamling nalu yumegi kechu tsenripa su kara chikha zomshinawe tele khungi toto zamling nalu namshin yeta jurwagi kole kara khungi shipselbe te toto tsinso ane be chunu jamtso nalu chu ani chigi ase yasono ke ani chigi shudanu te ani zum chumle tendi penaben churu ane be thuni imbese te khungi ani report ti tichu thei bala because of the 2021 IPCC report, I think the alarm has really been sounded that climate change is real, it's happening, and it's undeniable that it's human activities that's causing it, and therefore the whole world has much to do to adapt and also mitigate the worst impacts of climate change.
Definitely. But in terms of climate change mitigation or awareness, Bhutan has been leading within the international, or they've been taking the lead in terms of in the international realm. What are some of the climate action initiated by Bhutan? I'm sure we're all aware that more than 60% of our forest is still under forest cover. We are carbon neutral or carbon negative, perhaps. So in that ways, Bhutan has been an example to the international forum.
Absolutely, and I'm so happy that you brought it up, Lasange. So, as I said before, ngachige kap chungkui tele ngachelu peljo konfegi thole beru namesame ngachigi bemitsup diberu ngachigi atara climate change kitunlu. So, in terms of climate action, we have really led the efforts la. And it's beyond what we could have done with the resources at our disposal. So to start with, in 2015, the world leaders signed something called the Paris Agreement. The ilo Paris kenja se labre tu be bala
Yes.
te ani dinalu kachi be se wachin ngachirage kap cheju chunsu me ba kara chi kha zom bebe ta ngachi gi namshin yeta juwa gi tunlu dothap kachi zum beni ina ani gi kolegi ichachi imbe bala. So with the signing of the Paris Agreement, we are obligated to submit something called nationally determined contributions every couple of years. The ani nationally determined contribution semidinalu ngachi gekhap ki namshinyeta jurwadi chumachuni gi tenlu dothap kachi zumra benina ngachi gi chaji ngachi gi siju kachi zumra yoga ani sukara tishina be phake go be wala te ngachi gi tuchu thenibam dike taila. So we submitted our second NDC. And what's wonderful is that Bhutan was one of the first countries to submit it. So in terms of expressing what we're going to do for climate in the country, hopefully as well as the region, we have been very enthusiastic, we have been very prompt, but at the same time we have also delivered. So the second NDC reaffirms that we are going to be carbon neutral. In 2015, we had something called the greenhouse gas inventory, which found out, and this was the third time that we had done it, and it found that Bhutan absorbs almost thrice as much carbon dioxide as we emit. But this doesn't mean that everything is great and it's all rainbows and butterflies. I think there's a lot that we can do, because even if we don't directly contribute to it, we do feel the impacts of it.
And we can see there on the screen, that's the road climbing up from Gasa Sachu parking lot, and you see the damages done by the flood there. Obviously, the Dzongkhag is trying to maintain the road. It looks a lot better from a week ago when I had, about a week or two ago when I had gone to Gasa to go survey for the race trail. But you could definitely see the devastation there. You may continue.
Right. So when it comes to climate action, there are two aspects to it, mitigation and adaptation. That Dzongkhana shuwachin mitigation semidi do thapteni imbebala deta ngachigi namshinyeta di namsame jumachuni gi tunlu kachizumra benina te pena bewachin ngachigi na duge khapna bewachin na se susungchop benigi mola. Then the other aspect is adaptation. The adaptation semidi ta ngachigi kadebera besichuru namshinyetan di judo sevigi chi imbebala te tani juwi thekalu the churi thong yachin lutsup sunam same shube thong yachin namshinye ta judi ngachigi sonampa sugi labe midisu yachin tuchu tholi jimbe kemetsup sanzumbe ta tidi mapalera chung se imbebala te ani zum beuda ngachigi ta kachizum gi kadebe tapshe disu kadebe teni ina ani zum chi imbebala. So we have a lot in terms of ngachigi in terms of our policies, in terms of government action, but what is also important is to bring this policy discourse to the people, because it's very admirable what our government has done, but there are a lot of young people today, for instance, who do not know that we have a climate change policy 2020, for example, that consolidates all existing legislation and writes out the institutional arrangements on who's going to do what in terms of climate action. So hopefully me being here, especially as a young person, what I also aim to do is to bring the conversation, bring the policy conversation to the grassroots, and we have around 2 hours to do that, so I'll take it slowly.
Yes, we have plenty of time to discuss. Once again, we see there on our screens 4 different cameras located throughout the trail with the wonderful volunteers of DESUPS and Gasa Dzongkhag administration, as well as personnel from Snowman Race Secretariat, TCB. So they're all up there in Gasa Dzongkhag, ensuring this coverage is well. But I just want to talk about in terms of the runners and the 20 runners from 20 different Dzongkhags. If you could drive our attention more towards the runners now. Yes, obviously, from three particular Dzongkhags, they they could not find or could not get, due to the COVID protocols, runners representing those Dzongkhags, but they did find other runners from Thimphu representing those Dzongkhags. Can we just talk about the runners? Do we have their profile?
Yes, we do. But before we go into individual profiles, I would like to make a general comment about our runners today. So all of us know that all the runners, all 20 of them are women. But they also come from such diverse backgrounds. So when we had an opportunity to speak to them before the race, they are civil servants. So one of them is an agriculturalist, one of them works in health. They are also actual athletes. As I mentioned before, a lot of them are very much into trail running and marathons. There are also some from the tourism sector. There is a policewoman today.
Yes.
So I was just marveling at the diversity of their professional backgrounds and the impact that they can have. Not only, when we think of women, we usually tend to associate it with our homes, where they have a lot of influence. So basically in the domestic sphere, but even professionally, I think there is so much potential here, and they agreed to participate in this race because they cared about the current conversation on climate and they wanted to show their solidarity to it. So it was just such an affirming experience to speak to them.
And it's amazing how these 20 women represent the all spectrum of womanhood here in Bhutan, from all different aspects of life, representing civil servants, perhaps private business owners, or police officers even,
Yes.
right? Agriculturalists as well. There we see in the image, once again, they're still climbing up from Gasa, Sachu, from the flag point, from the parking lot. It is quite a climb. So as you notice, they're running as well as in between speed walking, and this is how it's going to be pretty much from the entire race. But I see the leader has significantly put a gap between her competitors. She's the sole leader there. We're not quite sure who it is because the image is not so clear. But I guess we could get into the runner profiles just so that we are all familiar with who is competing in this race.
Excuse me.
Oh my goodness.
আচ্ছা গলে বেশা গলে বে রূপ ঠিপা দাসি জু জু সেবা রূপ জু রূপ ওয়া শুবি আছে গা আলো বে ইয়া ডিউটি কি মে লো ইয়া মাগি ডিউটি উঠো বে ইয়া বাদলো গাসা biker look at him. Last one. Garrison. Garrison is stunning. Nachi don't have to go. I get you to baby. Yeah. Judah, and the second go. And down now, a country still with them. Can I meet them again? Randall Vats. Gimbal has a shake dome with Joe. Gimbal the Niragani doom, which is a doom.
So as we can see there, the first runner leading the race is gradually climbing up or running up to the junction point to go up to the zone as well as go down to the Tachu. And there we see the junction point right there. And I'm glad to see that the coverage is, in terms of network connection, is quite strong there. The image is quite good. And the first runner has just crossed the junction, and she will be now climbing up to Damji village, I believe, Damji village. And from there on out, there will be, once you reach up to the top of the Damji village, she will have to take a left and go up the farm road and into the trail and down to the zone where the finishing is going to be in the parking lot of Gasa zone. Here we see she's just started climbing up from the junction point.
I think it would also be nice for the audience to know that the entire race has been organized where a lot of regard has been given to COVID-19 protocols. I think safety was of utmost importance to the organizers. And, we were saying about how perhaps they may not need masks while they're running, but anywhere else, I think there's a lot of effort put into maintaining appropriate COVID-19 protocols.
Sure. And is being strictly followed. As you are aware, we were in the meeting for the Snowman race with the Snowman race secretariat, and they were adamant about hand sanitizer. Mask, and even in terms of just pollution, they were the runners and the people involved in the race were asked to bring their own plates and mugs, own water bottles, so that way there's no trashes of plastic water bottles all around. So all these small little protocols helping in terms of, because the theme is climate change, and all these protocols set to make sure there's not minimal pollution. Protocols strictly being followed so that COVID, due to the COVID thing that we're experiencing right now, that everybody's protected.
Yes.
That's ani the tarigi tero kanjuk tendurgi lerim dinal di te ngacha tari neyam gi kablu gorin thab bodalo ta dinalo mashuchi gi te thujina do kadevena se te neyam gi te digital maneba te khare machabe se mola satoe majaba jude se te chaja jemi dusi te mala thuchar debe ke dola ta jubi gi kablo te khare chap juwa je bunge kam tam lambana le juni ka charo lambana ra botri ayu mola bungam jemi so tan bodalo kadebe isoro ta ngachi tara kara te soi digital ne te chirtangi baji khare chap satoja labthete chuchu gopti te tari dizum giro ta 개용기 때 덴두스 자고 때 대중기 방주 덴두 나로데 때 마파 사토 잔단지 가라 네고 데베로 때 다리로 tumraji 때 디지털로 마네바베 때 레림도 거든 탑보달로 당아지 지తం기 투지 랑겁딜라 때 로타리 방주기 덴두 레림지 이메 따로 디탑 마데오 베보 이메세 투지 나보이 캥겁 때 카치에세 주니 들레다 남길 되어지 쇼고벨라 때 ngagi kodosum bawachin ta tarigi tendu nalu khoro tendur bemi te amchu disu ta lobjan nalu devigi kablo khoro lobjan nankhelo baju gi tendu lerin disu gorin thab bodalo dinalo ang tamba gi sera shumi mola tele ang niba da sumba gi sera shumi gi te tendu pat chamato me yese koi the Kondisugi Tendale, Atsi jump to Tons no Matarian, Koni Panel Dodin, Luju, Mola, when I Hamalobran de Lukotamba Tendimi, Chi Kane Matemi, so the Matemi Katule, Luju Kade, Sonandus Kade Mogola.
Teta tachi shudo zumbela te kongi katole beabachin tendur zumchibe membebala tendur be memata konrakara charobe nyamrobe cheka jugiese te konregi sonang da samchasudi anebera nachulu laptela and I think just to reiterate once again, this really is a race of solidarity rather than a race of competition. And that is such a beautiful message for a beautiful occasion today, coinciding with the royal wedding anniversary.
Competing in solidarity in terms of awareness of climate change, mitigating climate change, awareness for Gasa Sachu, as we all know, has been swept away by the floods. And the women from 20 Zonghags, representing 20 Zonghags, coming together in solidarity to represent that and make awareness. Let's just get into in terms of the profiles of the runners, and hopefully we'll have that in our backdrop, our beautiful backdrop here in the studio. But let's just I mean, not in any particular order because we're not quite sure who's leading. But the 20 Zonghags, let's start with Pema Gasil. Her name is Kunzang Wangmo. She's 27 years old.
Right. So I remember meeting Kunzang, and you know, I'm looking at the runner profiles and I'm thinking of how excited people in their homes must be thinking about them running today and having the opportunity to see them, and you know, they might be able to recognize some of their friends or their family members today on TV. So that thought makes me very happy. So Kunzang Wangmo, she's 27, she's from Pemagatel. She works as a messenger, so she's a working woman, and you know how she was nominated. So we asked her and she said, well, everybody wanted me to run. And you know, she looks well. All of them are quite fit, but tachi odikigi ngalu chido zumbela. Konkara chajochi kachidu sewachin ya sat thosa joda ladugi mitopka ladu mitopka teta nawachin kadebe benina se embebala. And you know, there is no cure for altitude sickness other than to just
climb down the
sleep,
altitude, right?
eat well, rest, and if you really get sick, then come down. But all of them seem to have made it today, and we also have a medical doctor, Dr. Sonam, on the team. So kondacha tunsoche la tempule de menda menche sukara mugi betanibe. Doctor Gasa
It's interesting how you brought up the altitude in terms of altitude sickness. That's what they were worried about, and it's quite interesting because I've been just told that the woman leading the race is from Gasa. Her name is Yande. She's 30 years old, and it's quite not surprising, but interesting. The woman from Gasa leading the race in Gasa. So can we talk a little bit about Yande, who's 30 years old, representing Gasa?
So Yanden, coincidentally, also came first position during the 2017 Laya Run. So she's quite experienced in terms of the environment, but also just running. So she is quite the strong contender today.
So that's her in the red cap, I believe. The image quality, we can't really make it out, but I've been just told that that's Yanden, 30 years old from Gasa. And yes, she did come first position. She took the first position the Laya Run in 2017. In fact, I was up there covering the Laya Run, and this I believe it coincided with the first Highland Festival.
Right.
Very interesting, and I was following them trying to keep up with them. I could not keep up with them. And through the movie magic, as they call it, or television magic, camera cuts and whatnot, I would run for a little bit and then get in the vehicle, skip ahead, and then run for a little bit. I mean, I wasn't competing in the race. I was just trying to cover it. But quite interesting. I mean, we have to commend the runners, the athletes, these women especially, for taking on such a feat. Because this is not an easy feat.
Absolutely.
17.5 kilometers.
Yes, and it's not just a straight road like the one we see right now. Ko jumigi lamdi toto di thadi du mo dak toto di lejim bera du te yupchi khale ko khayata namsame zegopchi yu se anebe lapte la ko amsuso. Tele ngachi tigi ko le lojulap nale ya ngachi sange gandu jude namsame la khachap mete khondi tina jugo bese.
Las lem zimi tu sigila tata to tero namsam ngerang da panyam ki thol maparo mugi khare di chap no mosla
Imbela.
khare ro ngerang to chap khare jumola te mutin da dorin bimishen kai mendo te nongor chi thom me ngachi te shammap chu ngerang ki thole te ngachi godosum bewachin te gasa le mola moro laya le mola
Remela.
te moi mi ba chi kinjang lo
Yande.
Yande me te yande gi ta tarigi nalu te tendu be te mapa muro nyamyong yumi gi te baju gi nalu te hato michira me te chilo nitong chupding gi te laya baju gi tendu nale te ro ang sera gi ang tamba gi te sera shumi te mingom chira ime se shuni te tato nabu gi zimi de laya le te kelo sumchu lame la te yande ime se shuni la.
As you might have also seen, as Yande was running, she threw a water bottle. I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that there's going to be a sweeper team coming behind when all the runners have passed that point, and they will be picking up the trash, maintaining the environment as clean as possible. So please do not be concerned about that. There will be a sweeper team that will be coming along and picking up the trash. But for the runners, they cannot stop. They have to hydrate themselves, obviously, and they'll leave the trashes where it's visible, and the sweeper team will sweep up as well as clean up.
Yes.
Shall we move on to the next racer profile, perhaps?
Certainly.
Obviously, we talked about Yande from Gasa. This next runner, very interesting character as we met her. She's a police officer, I believe, and she's representing Dagana.
Yes.
Her name is Riksum Hamo. She's 32 years old.
Yes.
32 years of age.
Yes. So I've also had the opportunity to speak to Riksum briefly, and we were talking about her running since school. Demo Riksum Hamo kelo sumchiso ni la mo tagana zonka nale imbe. Demo mami nalu imbe la. Police nalu la. RBP tinsum gapachi. And she was saying how different it is running in other places and trying, and I believe she did a trial run in Thimphu as well. So she was a little nervous about running all the way up in Gasa, but we did reassure her that hopefully things will turn out just fine for her. So Riksum was also the one who had quite a bit of thoughts on the race and bringing more attention to climate change. So she was talking about Tagana and how it is one of it's quite far-flung compared to a place like Thimphu. And she was sharing about how a lay person living there would not really understand what climate change is, although it would impact them in many ways. So when they work on their lands, the way they live their lives. So she really hoped that this would be an opportunity for her to bring more attention to that and have more people think about climate change. And zonkanale at shiwachin te riksumdi mogi tagana zonkagi pena bewachin tagana zonka zumchi bewachin atiti tazur imbe mola te ta nachi timpuda chepda didi halamchira imbela te mogi bewachin ma tagana lu tanga chigi Snowman pasu kongi bebachin namshinyeta juwa semedi kachinara hamiko se te hamma kodira berura namshinyeta juwagi be konlu nyoba chummeba te mola kongi penaben tholi jimbe kematu yachin tuchu chap matu se te ani beni digi riksumgi beba chinta motari jube motaganali insoda konsugi yachin jantonalu ta bebete ani zumchi yudome semegi kowachi on se mogingalo anebe laptela
las te ngache the koda peni nalo iminale ta ngache amchugi jahato wachin dinalo digi koad as mambe papedo zumbe chong wala tatabura ro tendur nalo kachira beru phoja desu tendur bebe dalo namsami ta 상계기 카톨릭 가도 처음 먹을라. 때 dinalo 같이 암수 desu tendur bemigi digi koadi mambe pedo zumbe 처음 먹어 얀 가도 처음 먹을라.
In that case, I definitely believe, I think in terms of competition and marathons and races, I've covered many races, Bhutan International Marathon, Tour of the Dragon, Dantak bike race, many of the races that happens in Bhutan, and I believe it's quite equal in terms of participation in terms of men and women. There are many women that are eagerly, even more so nowadays, because I think everybody is health conscious. Everybody wants to be in the outdoors. Everybody wants to hike and trek and bike and run. So in terms of that, I don't really see any differences in terms of the participation. Yes, there are more men participating, but I think equally and even more so now, women are coming forward to participate out of their own interest or in terms of competition. I think they're just interested to just do something active, something that's healthy, in terms of promoting a healthy lifestyle, not just for themselves, but even for the younger generation out there, I think. So not so much of a difference.
Yes, the pana the difference keba equal member la tanga chebe watching amsu disugi tendu bemi digi koa dila the bemi di kongi participation mona kongi and participate bemi digi koa that the amsu disugi peo the lo mom te hako mega te yan ngachita amsu disugi the chimnalo nangi amchu beru amsurata mola sasa choni iru amsurata chimnalo alu danse beni chiru genku dingde amsu bas mola dan chi beo the lo kongi khatel ngarai samshanila ngagi dorin besup sadalo ngagi te kachira beru ngagi besup se kongi ani lotop che thopni walo anzumgi tendura beru anbo ngachi amsu disugi beru na kachira beru tangache ta chimnalo sasa te kachira beru danse be chimnalo kachira beru layo besu beodalo ta disumgi tendunalo ngachigi be ta ngacha de iminale ta gehap ki tandale bola ngacha rajin ya tang dansi thamni gi me ngacha namshi jujegi kole ko ta ti mam peni nalo amse disu genku ba be pe ko ta ti dis beda wachin digila te penthodi pendi te jachobe omenase ngaya nomela
Very definitely la. I think even more so it's specifically for this particular race because it's 20 women representing 20 Zonkhags. And as we have been told, and Namge had, I think, reiterated this, somehow climate change has more impact towards rural women because they're taking care of the household chores and whatnot. There's a shortage of water, which is an effect of climate change. Yes. It affects them the most because, yes, I think generally women are the ones who stay home. Please don't quote me on this, but generally as a fact, I mean, within the rural areas, that the women are the ones who are taking care of the household chores. So in that case, in that terms, women participating in a race like that has a much more impact in terms of spreading that message, I think. I think that message is clear.
Yes.
And 20 women who, out of their own interest, coming forward to compete, well, not even compete, but as coming together to represent or to promote climate change mitigation, as well as Gasa Sachu's incident in terms of being swept away by the floods, as well as women themselves coming together and participating in this particular race just represents that, I think.
And Just to add on that, I think certainly the fact that it's a women's only race stirs up a lot of curiosity. It brings about a lot of interest, and that is to bring more attention to climate change and climate action. Odikigi sundo zumbela deta kara amsume so da sachi de kara gi we kachi semi de ina se to wachi ma do vera chumma ba mola. But in terms of climate action la, I think women contribute a lot, but what I have learned as I was preparing for today was that women's contributions in their homes, where they have a lot of influence, where disproportionately women spend their time, it's underappreciated, it's unaccounted for often, and very little is understood as well in Bebala. Tangachigidi mapa amsusu ngachira aiberu angeberu gi kole no satamachin kongi ngachi chunkube de kan tatamda kadichi kongi ngachi gi tunlubi ngachi gi shebe de budani di shipsil nalu percentage be ngachi gi di dabmi shebe bala. So it's understudied, it's very it's not understood very well semidani in Bebala. Te tari I hope to shed some light on it la tari ngagi atiti tambara namshijuwagi amsudisulu maduchibera kadebe nyubinagi kole tele niba seuda namshinyeta juchi di bemachunigi tenu dotab disunangachi amsusugi kadebe charo betsuga ani nigi kole shunila
las namsum kadiche ta namgi chara mapa lose bewajinte chara ngatan 다링같이 텔레비전처럼 뭐시라 충구를 몸에 대베로 임메스 나서 충구면같이 알루이메 뭐데 알루치베로라 차라기다 또 레름 구츠밀에 소타다 천시 차라기다 남시 주제다 대외기 답마디오 강엘 디기 다날마 시주 탑람 독탑 같이라 디나미즘이 the legend be seri ribe nalma devi shude dinami sami ngerangi to wala namge tele imina tari dachi namge dachi lujila ba dachi najungi khatlebe ngosap pe inse dinalma devi themi se de chara shude ngerangi namge dangachi lerim kachira gorin tharu dimbik techi phembadi dinalba ngachiragi najun dusugi tandale inse gorin thap phido te tari na najunchi de ngachi de chiga yoi badalo te iminale tari neden dangachi namshi judegi nalo teru 나준치기 원섭기베 때날마 레림드소 남이섬이 희상서 남의 세슈바들 녀랑이 때디 차라기 다 차로 나돌레 로 고와다 찌드세 마투투페페 때 날마 타로 레샤 나기로 탑람 독탑드스 가치런데 레즈메 슈니스 때 나기 순데 남이섬이 때 녀랑이 또 볼라는게
Last, just as an update, I've been just updated that the first place is still the female runner from Gasa, Yande, who's leading the race, and the second place is from Ha. Her name is Sonam Pema. She's 39 years of age, and surprisingly, because she has no running experience, just from her pure interest, and she is at the moment at second place.
That's amazing. No running experience. That's what we're told on the profile. Mo hematachi pama juice imbela.
dinal ta lokna depta lor dinal ang tamba da ni ba theni lu joe mendo mosla mo ikole ta tonga chite debita wadalo
But it's still at the beginning. I mean, they're still climbing up the road at Damji village. They still haven't reached the turning point or the junction point where they have to go up the farm road. So still a lot of race to be done. You never know. Some runners are more experienced. They're probably preserving their energy to put in at the last moment. So we never know. So, but quite interesting to see that second place right now at the moment is Sonam Pema from Ha. She's 39 years of age. We're not quite sure who the third place is. In between the runners, there's a huge gap in between the first place, second place, as well as the third place. But I'm sure we'll be updated as we get the information. We will update you. But for the moment, let's get back to our conversation of why, how specifically climate change impacts women and how it goes undernoticed.
Right. So I would like to start off by talking about agriculture in our country. And we like to say that agriculture is the backbone of this country because approximately, according to latest stats, around 57% of Bhutanese people rely on agriculture for their livelihoods. What's interesting within this sector is that 51% of people working there are women. So it's also been termed the feminization of the agricultural sector. So that means that there are more women engaged in growing our food, in growing our vegetables and our fruits, contributing to national food security and self-sufficiency. So it's only correct to conclude that women are going to be more aware of the changing climate as well as feel them. So they really have this lived experience. Dongkana shuwachin la ngachigi gekap na lu ta jachale ngapchunga dun de chigi senamgi la beshinabe de konra kongi mitseanebe chomise imbela. Ti tinale kachi ngachigi hakogop du sewachin ta ni senamgi la be me disunale doro jachale ngapchunga chi de chi amsu imbela ngachigi gekap na lu. Te tigi ngachi lukachi lapmo sewachin sunamgi labimi ngachigi ngachiragi samigi chumberu tsesu shinde dusu kara ngachi amtu dusugibe chommeba mola te namshinyeta jurwadi aniletendi ngachi amsu dusugi namshinyeta di jume da nahi ane bebe tuchu atsi majochi be imese kongi atsi hamajochira koni zumbe dubala te tambadi anila. So that means that to empower women to make better livelihoods in the agricultural sector by introducing them to climate smart agricultural practices such as introducing new crop varieties, that's really going to empower them. The other thing is also women's roles in adaptation and mitigation activities. So I came across this very interesting thing. So women are involved in community forest management, but as I mentioned before, very little is understood about their role in it, their contribution to it, and how they benefit off of it. Then let's talk about our households, where women do more things. So, we're talking about women's contribution in the reproductive sphere, which is often unpaid, undervalued. So women make a lot of contributions in terms of managing household waste, for example, managing a kitchen garden, for example. So it's all these little things where we need to bring more visibility, where we need to highlight that all these little actions actually do contribute to the larger climate conversation. So I'll discuss a couple more from the policy perspective on what is being done there, how there's being more studies and attention brought to the to women's contribution as we go on to the conversation.
But one thing to pick up on that, and maybe perhaps you could explain it in detail a little bit later, or maybe even now.
Okay.
But in terms of how, now obviously we have 20 women representing 20 different Dzongkhags. Is there any, does each Dzongkhag have their own mitigation plan in terms of climate change?
Right. So this is an interesting question because when we think about climate action, as His Majesty the King mentions in his Kasho quite notably, we have to transcend siloed thinking because there won't be a specific policy, although if you look hard enough, you could see it, that says, I'm going to give you this money specifically to do this. So there are actions in other sectors that indirectly and invariably contribute to climate action. So for example, in the current 12-year plan, we have the flagship programs. So I'm going to talk about TULA, the water flagship program, and the national organic flagship program. So it doesn't say climate, but very indirectly there is going to be resources and funds allocated to make sure that the water water systems or the food systems that we're going to be creating is sustainable, is climate resilient, is going to help people improve their livelihoods, and at the same time adapt to climate change and even mitigate some impacts of climate change. So yes, there are a lot of resources being dedicated to climate action, but we also have to think about it in terms of how it might appear in other sectors.
Sure.
I hope that made sense.
That definitely makes sense. I mean, it's not directly, they don't mention it directly as climate change mitigation. It's just titled in a different way, but they contribute to in terms of climate change action.
Absolutely.
In terms of mitigating it.
Absolutely.
That definitely makes sense. Vicky?
Plus, tatugiru densin nami sami te chu bigila te khachu gi densin rai me ta zongkhak ri khatule bero genku bashmle mola ta chandra tani namshi jujigi kakthap ki tendale inse namshi jurwale tembigi kengen disu dokthap ki tendale inse ta digi tendale ta mangul iruda tele mangul gi japcho the chaji loksube sosube chamdi medira beru the dida tiwigi ngachi namshi juje da the tiwigi the chungku mola the kajlo tungchu zinjong mosla tele chani zinjong disu the ngachi kaktha donlen kade benna the disu gi nalu the ngachi chaji disu cham the mangil gi japcho disu dinata machin de the ngachi kadebe isru namshi juje da tiwigi the kangil to set up ba mosla tani
atiti torotibu labachin la mapa ngagi to sangelu lamete anepe mebala ta ngachigi sichu dusam data atara ani di ngagi chelu manulane chi chinge te ani di ta inchi minchi namshinya ta juwagi tunlu be kachichi bese mapa atara di lap mongo bebala kachimu sewachin ngachigi jenkhalu siju jenkhalu yachin ngachiragi plans disu tapena ben na ogi sundo zumbela ngachigi chudi kadebe so we call it sustainable water management la hani dikade benina yachin ta sonam pasulu imbela ta che chu tho di lejimbe o matsubachin ngachi jungi chelu anebe madu sapchi chinge te ani gi ta sanye di atsi thu mambe ta bachin tina lejimbe ketupse ani zumbe birre ta tinalu theri baribe ngachi gi lapdalu namshinyata jurwagi tunlube isara de lap mongo bela nisugi kara very indirectly vela namshinyata di namshinyata jurwagi tunlu dothap suzumchive imbe se anichi anishu
las namsum kariche namge lasange ta tatugi ta panjugi tendugi kadebe dola sange
as of now as the information that I've got, obviously the first position is still being maintained by the female runner from Gasa, Yandin. Second place from Ha, and right. And we still don't have information in terms of who the third place is. I'm sure we will get an update on that, but as we get the information, we will inform the audience. The runners, majority of the runners are still climbing up. From Gasa Chachu, obviously they started from Gasa Chachu parking lot. They're climbing up the Damji village road, and at a certain point they will reach the junction where they need to the Japsil junction, where they will be taking the trail. Some of the runners have already reached the water point station. That's 10 kilometers away from Gasa Sachu, and I believe that's where the runners are at the moment. And as we see on the screen there, one of the runners taking a bottle of water from the water station there, and that's the first water station 10 kilometers away from the starting point, Gasa Sachu.
Yes, and to get back to the runner profiles then.
Just sorry for the interruption. I just got an update.
Right.
The third place is from Tashigang, and let's get her profile. Tashigang Tashi Chazum, 35 years of age. Namge, would you like to give some more details on Tashi Chazum?
Las. So from Tashigang, Tashi Chazom, 35 years old. She got the first possession during the Snowman race selection run that happened this year. And again,
Once again, I apologize. I'm getting updates in my earpiece, and as I get the updates, I would like to inform the audience as well. Right there on your screen with the white hat, that's Tashi Chozum, third place from Tashigang. So she's the third place. First place is from Gasa. Second place is from Ha Zongkok, and the third place at the moment is from Tashigang. Her name is Tashi Chozum. Please continue.
Las. So as I have previously mentioned, my aspiration to perhaps compete in one of the Snowman runs in the future, I did not realize that there was a selection run, which is a little silly on my side. So Tashi had recently competed in it. It's 37 kilometers, and she got the first position. So it does appear that she is a seasoned runner, and we're not sure if she has been in the third position since the race started, right? It's been almost an hour now, but
currently she's holding the third position.
Right. So I think she's making great progress, and as you mentioned before, this is a long game, and you really have to preserve your endurance to just keep going. So very exciting to see how Tashi will perform in the upcoming hours.
Plus, tato ngaji kodo sumba wachin the ang sumba ginalo the tato Tashigale.
So that's Tashism in the back. I apologize for cutting you off, but that's Tashism in the backdrop.
Plus, the Tashigale me the kelo be wachin sumchuso nga Tashizom la. The tato namgi shudozumbe the chara dinalo the juni nalu tande kademchi yuri the de ngaji the zaktu be go mola. The nga taru kutamba koila tangachi shapra theni shapra chamni surgeon te dingachi chak to be ma trashona ki mola te panju gi nalo chak to be on se dinga taru kutamba koi te panju gi chak to gi tendunal be wachin te ro mogi te duchi gi me de taru kanju gi tendu gi nale chak to gi nale ang tamba tendu me mola te test shows me te kelo be wachin te sumchu so nga tashiga le mela.
That's right, Diki. Not just in terms of pre-selection, I think they also go through, before the run, they also have to go through some medical checkup. Are they fit enough to race? These things are all checked, obviously, for their health reason and whatnot. And we had Dr., I believe her name is Sonam, right? She was very adamant and particular about that because she's a health profession and she was taking no chances. She said everybody who's participating needs to do a health checkup. They need to have a tick mark on certain health protocols, as well as even the people who are covering there, the volunteers. They need to be in a pretty good health in order to be at that particular altitude in Gasa. So all of that is being ensured. So hopefully, and this is one of the reasons why this coverage of the race is going really well, because everybody up there is pretty fit. And I've been just updated that the fourth place is from Bumdang, and her name is Punsawangmo from Bumdang. She's 22 years of age. Go ahead, Namge.
So very young, but she's also a seasoned runner because we can see here on her profile that she has run in 10Ks and 5Ks before, and she's also a top position holder during her school sports days. But I suppose this is going to be quite a long distance for her, and she's doing pretty good so far. And we're almost an hour since the race commenced, and we are quite excited for the next hour, which will be our last leg.
But it's interesting to notice that she's in fourth place at the moment, obviously, and from the first three place, she's the youngest.
Right.
She's 22 years of age. So will that be a factor? We don't know. We got to check.
Well, you do see a lot of very, very fit women here who are much older. And this only goes on to show that sometimes age isn't necessarily a limiting factor, right?
As long as you're fit and you practice and you do this continuously, age is never a factor. And we see that over and over in many other sports discipline. We see that in football, FIFA. We see that even in very violent fighting sports like UFC and boxing. Time and time again, there are particular athletes that defy age.
Absolutely.
And they perform so well. But it's getting back to the race, obviously, Punso Wongmo, I believe, yes, she's representing Bhutan Zongkak, but originally I think she's from Hlensi.
Is that so?
Right,
Yes.
as we had a conversation with the runners
Yes.
just a couple of days ago before they headed off to Gasa. But I do believe, and I might be wrong, but I do believe from what I remember that she said she was originally from Hlensi. I believe she's a civil servant.
Yes.
Right, she's working in Bhutan and she's representing Bhutan Zongkak.
Yes.
So she's at the moment maintaining 4th position in the Snowman race, women race for climate.
That's that ang jiban ba chin te ta to kelo ke chi ni la me la te phumtale phunso ongmo me se shuni te mapa ta chiro ta na namgi shwe shwe te jongkhak sum de chinale te khore jongkhak nale ma thende beru ta jongkhak jengkhale jongkhak digi ngosap I se thende theis mola te dizumbe te ta turo ang jibagi nalu ang jiba themi te phunso ongmo te mapa moro te 정학 배워지 현실임에 대와다 봄딱 정학이 카톨레베 te ngosap에 퇴미메세 슈니 te 모로 시옵임에 te 롭다나 데비기 갑로 te 데즘기로 젠두날레파 teang 니바기 서라 슈주두 te 이메날레로 te 가슬로타 롭다나로 체리킬레름 체리키 젠두르스 고린 타베달로 te 데날로 앙 담바 니바기 te sera shujugi loji message te tato ang jibanal bewajin te phunso omo le hunchile dewada bumta mosabi message ni la bumta lela.
Yes. Te sangyegi be bachin pinso lokachini re imbe te tigibe mo henke mo lijimbe jusumi de anigi unga se tume bala te ngache to tolab di duila te ta ngachigi juni beru football beru kachina beru tetekap lotsegi be jometu be mola te tati chawa bego be telerangi towa ungo be te ngache tarinalu panjumi gi gisho be wachin mo lo ngapchu de chi imbela te ro anichi joire mugi namsame ngawadi tabbe jusu bo se no mela
las ta ngache khachi shuji ngache dikachi ngache lo temba chup mo se wachinla ta bema begi kheba ime mol ngacha namra bero te ngacha myonga derin bo chugi te kalop samla ngacha najun disu gi thele bero besup se bema begi kheba I ngacha najun disulu lam tengo se ngachi gochip disulu lam tengo lam za jago khongi tende lam zogo ngacha najun disu gi tendale te lam za ja bachin ngacha najun disu gi bera besup bema begi kheba I je te ngacha ngaderin bo chugi kalop samde te ngacha namra bero disem ga shashimle 당아이 베미스님의 배우셔니세 마노 베심리라 나이 베수 다통아이 베라 마베 세기 노성 땅겁디 마치 가르 게체 데즈메테 다도나 파주기 텐도날레 암주 데 킬로 베와치 납주 겐쇼이메 데 겐쇼 베와치 킬로 키 쥐고 뭐라 제 다도로 코앙 담바 니바 숨바 지바기 날레 당 지바데 케치니메 데 아주 베마베기 케바이메 테르바리 데 베라베고 베숲 세일로 뭐 상게
And getting back to in terms of the runner's profile, the oldest, let's talk about in terms of the age-wise, the oldest participant. Her name is Vivi Tsering.
Yes.
She's 51 years of age, and
Yes.
she represents Sarpang Zongkak.
Yes la. So yes, I'm Vivi, 51, such a vibrant woman.
Yes.
And she shared that she's a grandmother.
Oh, wow.
And yes, la. But and she also shared that she started running, I believe, when she was in her 40s. So again, I think there are a lot of conventions that Vivi has defied, and that only goes on to serve as an inspiration for us. La. So she's done a couple of marathons. She's also done the Snowman race. She's also done the Liar Run. So she's quite experienced, and I'm quite excited to see
Yes,
how she's going to do today, and I believe her objective today is to complete the race. And yeah, I think that's
And
going to happen.
knowing Vivi, and I've seen her in many of the races that I've covered, specifically the Bhutan Sports Festival that she had competed in 2019, which takes place in Pobjika, and she had come third position for that. I also saw her competing in the first Laya run, and she completed that particular race. So this particular race, in terms of her completion, I have no doubt that she will complete it. In fact, she might even come. Who knows? Right now, there's another, a long race to go. Another perhaps 10 more kilometers to go, and you never know. And just goes to show once again that age has no factor in terms of competition and endurance and health, basically.
Plus, the tarigi the ganju tendu ginale the geshu dera ro kelo ngapchunga chi lami the sarbang le the vivid string imeseshuni the tato sangi shudosumbe the vivid string ngarage chalesha the ro lerim the iminale baju gi tendu gi lerim chalesha the jangthongnal thongdomi la ngome the mathon la ge the disum gi tendu ginal nami sami the to kemichira imeseshuni la the tato namgi shudosumbe the dinalo mui khatole the geha thobachin dirap me mola the dimen maji tendu bego the dinal sach deha to nyamnyong thop the tendu beni di mui migil dichi me mola participation tele complete beni di mola han badalo macha chi mikte kashike go ma saji ngagi bemisni me ta jada ni se member beshimle ngai sachi tendu bedani te kashlo chama toni di geha thomni wadi chama toni di kha che se de nga jamyo nga de remochi chogi de kalop zami mo la participation is more important than winning se suni mo la anzumbe de nga che tendu di beshimle dinale nyamnyong top dinale kachira iru hapshimle da dizumgi lerim di tari kotambai ju ise janimi mo la lotar shindu goren tap me tari nal nyamnyong top shimle matutu pe chawa be de shumal shulegi tendu nalpa te nga che dodin beni da tendu beni da darik chini me wala dan bodal am vivik sringe utabura dizumgi tendu nalpa tehato tendu bemi mi ngomchirei te tariro tendu na geshu dira na vivik string sarbangli message.
Very true. Participation is so much more important in terms of sports and whatnot. Participation is important rather than thinking about winning. But once you're participating, obviously the next goal is to win. And Amvivi Sering, 51 years of age, she's participating in it. Her wish is to basically, when we talk to her, just complete it. And I'm sure she will complete it. Let's move on to discussing about the youngest. 19 years of age. She's from Samrup Jonghar. And her name is Sonam Chuki.
Let me just pull up her. Yes. So our previous participant, Vivit Sering, is representing Sarpang Zongkak. She's actually from Thimpula. And Sonam Choki, who's our youngest contender today at 19, she is also a representative and she's representing Samrup Jonghar. So I am looking at her profile, and again, I believe most of our participants have a lot of experience racing and they are quite seasoned, so just very similar to the other participants. She's also participated in a couple of marathons, and in her Dzongkak she has also participated in the athletic meet, and she has held top positions. So it's really exciting to think about where all the women are going to end up towards the end of the race, and how the positioning is going to look.
Sure.
I am anticipating a lot of changes because
Perhaps.
that last mile matters.
Definitely.
And so yeah, this is Sonam Choki at 19.
Now, we talked about how perhaps maybe age might be a factor, and we have concluded that if you're dedicated, if you're into the sport, that age is not a factor. Now, 19 years of age, not a lot of experience in terms of marathon. Would experience be a factor in terms of getting that top position in this particular race?
But even so far we've said that age doesn't necessarily have to be a factor, but there are certain biological imperatives.
Sure.
So what we're trying to say is maybe some people might be more advantaged, but we would hope that in the end what matters is the hard work that you put in. And again, when it comes to experience, when it comes to how many times you've run before, there are so many factors that can affect how somebody would run on this particular day today. So it's your habituation to the
Sure.
altitude, how well you slept last night.
All of these
So
matter.
There
What you
are so
ate.
many things.
Right.
And I'm certainly not a doctor, and I feel a little strange commenting on it right now, but so
But
many
generally
complex
speaking, I
factors.
think rest, eating habits, exercise habits, they all come into factor of how you
Yes, la.
perform. And even psychologically of where your mind state is in
Yes.
terms of competition. These all
Right,
factor.
right.
But another thing that might also come into factor, perhaps maybe just talking to the runners, some runners are more road runners.
Yes.
Some are more trail runners.
Yes.
So there's a difference in terms of different types of running or running competitions. Some runners don't like trail running. It's a completely different feel. So that might also come into a factor. I'm not sure if Sonam Shoki is used to running in trails. The Gasa Snowman race, this particular race, has both components.
Yes,
Road
yes.
running as well as trail running. So it would be quite interesting to see what happens next.
Yes. la.
Las tarigi te tendu gi nale tendu be paju gi nalo te ko takha tomi gi tele te chungshu dira samru jonghale te kelo chugulami te sonam chuki me se shuni te som chuki gi kole tumda shuachin la ta som chuki ro lobdana lo devi gi kablo te desumgi te paju gi tendu dis be dol di dinale ro ta dinale gyaha thomichira ime te zonghak nangkhelo te cherik ki tendur disu be kablo te dinalo ro angsumba themigi te lujudu te nitong chugulu mela nitong chugulu te zonghak lobdai cherik ki tendur gorin thawi kablo te dinalo ro ta angsumba gi sora shumi mi ngomchi me se shuni te kachi thele peru ro cherik ki tendur disu te gorin thabbe dalo te dinale ro ta kelo chugula me samdu jonkhale sonam chuki gi te dinalo tendur nami sami lejmbe be dekhato dinale gekhato begi te najin sa jago moshla najin chirei me se shunila te ngerangi somchuki te tarigi ro kanjuki tendur nale te chungshura te jenshura te somchuki me se shunila.
That's just the latest update in terms of the positions of it, and perhaps maybe experience does come into factor in this particular point, because the second place has just been taken over by Tashi Shezum, representing Tashigang Zongkhak, who's 35 years of age. She's come first position in the Snowman race selection run,
Yes.
which is 37 kilometers in April 2021. So she's just taken up the second place. And as we were speaking, perhaps maybe the experience factor does come into point here. But very interesting first place still maintained by Yande from Gasa. Second place now by Tashi Shezum from Tashigang. So I'm thinking perhaps the third place is from Ha, and the fourth place from I believe. I forgot.
Phuntsho.
Fourth place is Phuntsho.
Phuntsho, Bhutan.
From Bhutan.
Yes.
So as is happening, we're maintaining the positions and whatnot. There will be changes throughout, obviously. Some runners will take over. Some runners will fall behind. And as we get the information, we will update you guys.
And on that note, I would also like to bring attention to now the second aspect of climate and gender. So in terms of natural disasters, for instance, that would be brought about by changes in the weather pattern, we need to think about the special needs of women, the specific needs of women, and the specific ways in which women are affected during such times. So I was thinking about the preparation for the women's race at Gasa and how that conversation actually came up, which I was very happy about. So thinking so being gender sensitive, essentially, thinking about facilities that women might require that might be a little different. So a lot of the times we take this for granted, the need to have differentiated policies around gender. So what I'm thinking is, for instance, during disasters, when we look at essential items, do we consider sanitary pads, for instance? I hope that we start thinking along those lines. So I think this is such an important aspect of climate action as well. So thinking about a huge section of the population that might have specific needs during disasters, and that's only going to be highlighted because, as we've discussed, we are really starting to see the impacts of climate change. Te zonkana ulushu wachin la tangachigi namshinyeta juwagi chi torokachi semka jagoptu se wachin tiginyoken dusugi amsusulu atse madobe kadebera chumina nachigi ti tepchibera nosatango bebala te pena bebachin ta namshinyeta juwale tendi churiberu nutsuperu chi chungbe ngachi kara jojogo bachin mola tita ngachigi essential items se lapni do mola titinalu ngachigi jigo nosatamme tele dunigi good nosatamme debuda ngachigi mamra amsudisugi dacha themdagi sanitary pads ki kole nosataunga se mola titaunga mitanga di nigi rewa bewachin. I hope we start thinking about it la ngachigi chajitsami sijuzomi sugi te anizum chunku tsoe nostangop te nasame khache bala te ta ngachigi lochi namshenyata juwale tendi ranjigi kenyen desu chundira dunime te anizum ginalu ngachigi amsusulu kadebe charo atsitsima jobe betsuga te yachin amsulaluchi alukeni te anizum disu ta tiphogelu mibewate mol amsuluchi amchipyo te no samthep khachizum ratangop tuga te aniswe ngachigi sijuna ngachigi policies disu nalwe ta no satani gutsugobe sibigi samcha disu leshara yu se shuni la
las thari bari la ma phoge disu when no satangop ki khache bala. It's quite important for even men to understand this and be aware of these kind of situations.
And that is why we talk about representation, right? A seat at the table. So sijutami kara phoge beda bachin amsusugi ko le nosameta ba mola. So it's important that we take more steps towards making sure that there are women representatives yes, at a level that is at par with men's representation at decision-making levels. And that is also climate action. If you empower women for them to be able to make decisions, to give them control over resources, so that they think of these instances and things, that's also climate action. And it has nothing to do with planting trees or segregating waste.
Yes. Once again, if you're joining us right now, we have started from the early hours of at 8 a.m. on this very joyous occasion of the 10th year anniversary of the royal wedding. So in commemorating that, as a part of that, the Snowman race, women race for climate change is happening. This is the live coverage of that. There are 20 women representing the 20 Dzongkhags racing right now in Gasa Dzongkhag, starting from Gasa Sachu to all the way to Gasa Dzong. And this particular race is happening. The one-day all-women's trail running called the Women's Race for Climate is happening in Gasa Dzongkhag at the moment in order to celebrate the 10th royal wedding anniversary, as well as to make awareness on climate change and its issues, particularly such as disasters caused by landslide at Laya and the recent flash flood at Gasa Sachu. The participants are from 20 different Dzongkhags. Now there are 3 Dzongkhags that, especially in the southern side, who the representative runners from those particular Dzongkhags could not come here due to the COVID protocol, situation. But we have other runners from Thimphu who are representing those particular Dzongkhags. So we do have all 20 Dzongkhags represented, and the race is currently happening right now. First place, I believe, still is being maintained by the female runner from Gasa, second from Tashikang, and third from Ha, and fourth from Bhutan.
Yes.
So we shall continue with the theme of the race, which is climate change and climate change mitigation,
Yes.
and women.
And well, so today is a very special day for all of us. It's the 10th royal wedding anniversary, and I was in class 11 when it happened. The first celebration occurred in Punakha, so I'm from Punakha, and so many fond memories of this day today, and it's been 10 years. And I was thinking about the involvement of Their Majesties in environmental advocacy and the very long legacy that our monarchs have had in terms of environmental advocacy. So most notably beginning from our fourth king, an environmental champion through and through. It was so visionary when we decided to think about our development holistically from the perspective of GNH, and I would contribute His Majesty the Fourth King's vision that was really quite radical at that time, because nobody was talking about the environment. Everybody was talking about growth, and now, many years later, when we see how the conversation has changed, I am quite proud to say that Bhutan, with the vision of His Majesty the Fourth King, was a pioneer in this kind of thinking about development holistically. And coming to our current monarchs, of course, His Majesty the King has always been concerned about resilience in terms of our society, our economy, but also the climate, but also our Gelson, Her Majesty the Queen, who is the patron of the Royal Society of Protection of Nature, the UNEP Ozone Ambassador. Her Majesty also works closely with the National Environment Commission, Clean Bhutan, and many other government and non-government agencies on conservation, waste management, and environmental matters. So in terms of the leadership, we couldn't be more inspired and more motivated thinking about the work that our king and our Gelson puts in.
Definitely, the paradigm of GNH, which was conceived by our Fort Kelpo, we may be a small country, but in terms of the environment and leadership quality, I think we have impacted the international forum in such a big way. Especially in the international forum, most countries think a small country can't do much, but Bhutan had proved that wrong, and we have been such an example with the visionary leadership such as the Fort Kelpo, as well as our Majesty at the moment, as well as Gelson. So such a proud moment indeed.
Plus tatu namngida tle sangi shudo zumbi tangachara gyahap the gelchi gi gyahap the namsam toshu chengi gyahap mola gyahap bomb the sura chepta tangachi du gyahap the chungkuchi rela the chungkuchi be the indra beru tangachara myo duge jiba chugi la thugi gongje seru the tawa seru tangachara gyahap na lo ngachara gi the rangin netang sungchop dingdi begop the myo ngaderimbo duge jiba chugi the tawa i se shunila te disu gi myo ngaderimbo duge jiba chugi the tawa lo zidi the gelchi gi thekale berura the gyahap zamling gyahap jenghale pa the namgi shudosumbe ta khorai gyahap nal perjo gonfel druga the namisamila tsagendi gi disu gonfel distambado ngaja gyahap panyam gi thole mola tangajra gi rajin netang dira sungcho bego ngaji rajin netang dira danzi bego se tangaji gi siju bero debendi ta tari lokti lo halam chi gi jable ta gyahap jangale pa rajin netang le tendi tap madu la ten bedalo the rajin netang le tendi gi mashu chi mola dan be bedo ngajra gyahap na lo tap madu namisam bom majung de ngajra tsora ngajra gyahap na lo siju dingdi tablam chi la ngajra rajin netang de dingdi be minyam gonfel the sungcho begop the ngaji genku the dato dingdibe the iminale myo dugi jiba chugi tawala ngajara rangin netan danzi begop the khachugi the zitong ke name the tendi inse shuni mona namge
Yes.
Definitely, and that is the major theme of this particular race, where 20 women from 20 different Dzongkhags, representing 20 different Dzongkhags, have come together in order to promote that very theme. If we could get some images from the race itself, we have perhaps the live broadcast of this race is going to be ending at 10 a.m. Maybe about half an hour. We only have about half an hour. We just want to get an update in terms of where the first top 4 have reached. If we could cut to the images from the race. Perhaps there we have it. It's good to see that in terms of connectivity, network connectivity, it's still pretty strong enough. The image quality is really good. There we see in the very bottom screen, that's the end point and the finishing line there. They've already decorated it. And in the background, we see the beautiful, majestic Gasa Zone looking over the finishing line. And what a great finishing line that is in a very iconic Gasa Zone. As of now, we don't have any images of... so the other 3 screens, perhaps, just to describe it, that's the Japsel junction. That's where the runners will turn from the road, and then there's going to be a trail from there, and then they'll be climbing down from the trail to the Gasa Zone parking lot where they will finish. But as of now, I don't believe the runners have reached that point. And there's only about half an hour left in terms of our live coverage. Hopefully we will see at least the first top 2, maybe top 3 finishing before the live coverage ends at 10 a.m. But the race will continue. This, in terms of visual coverage of it, will be still going on social media. You can catch this race as well on the BBS Facebook Live. So perhaps it will still go on there. I believe TCB is also covering it on their social media page, as well as Snowman Race Secretariat Facebook page. So you could check it out just in case if the runners haven't crossed the finish line by the time it's 10 a.m. You could catch it on the social media.
Yes, and I would like to bring our viewers' attention to the screen right now, where you can see a cardboard and it says "Save Our Melting Glaciers." So that's actually a photo booth la. Detanga na jantonalu zibachin ana yumigi ani pataf sachi imbela photo booth se zode la te analu ngachigi du bebe tele
ana de patab nira
imbela te says "Save Our Melting Glaciers" te ngachigi ta ya satosalu ke disu namsame shudo se namshinya ta jurwagi kolebe te tingachigi ken mola te ta ke shudalu ngachiragi chudisu tele tanjulu ngachiragi jamso disu nalu yubigi chugi se namsame yaseme ganle tele jamso baluni gilo tele churidisu teni ani imbebala te ngachigi kadetacha namshinyeta juchidi dotab betsu mapab betsu bachin ta kesu lejimbera lubebe tele chugi chudisu namseme kongi volume yasi mejun teji yasi mejun mijoni gibe nigi tunlu nigi tsuchibe imbela tetina jubebe konya tarigi panjumisu yachin temtawa omisu patapto bela nalo
las kariche te tato ta sago de bawachin ta tarigi te kanjuk tendugi te tendu judira ta ana hep ta judune mola chuse chudam de chigale ana juduni me ana juduni me se shuni te nabagi ta jisu te jakhalola te ngacha namisami jilapchengi te Gasa Zone nabagi jesu be se shuni tele Gasa Zone gi te bolo khalu namisami bombe nabagi kachi zido sawachin the Save Our Melting Glaciers somela ta de tangachi namshi juju da chegi te koda namisami chabra the golden bomb chira message ni ngachi namshi juju di ngachi ka tha bege te gari khagi la the ke disu shuni la ngachi ka tha bege the di ka tha bema subachin di te jamsona gi balap thuni mola churi theni the sari tuni kara dida dewa imle di ngachi kara the dizumgi the ken bomb majumle ngachi kara gi chigabe the donlenbe doctor be kata disu kara nyamruki tole bege sume the dima papa tapsugi the sago chibe zozoime the patab ni sago diwa the namsami ngambe dina gecho be kash thonchi sawajin the dinagi koda diwa mola ngachi koda di kara gi te sem ka shagop the gecho esi shunila.
Very true in terms of that photo booth. These small little things that they put up are ways in terms of promoting or in terms of thinking or starting a conversation about climate change action. And I believe that photo booth is specifically set up in order for people to take pledges in terms of thinking about climate action. And as you take a picture, I believe they also have a message board where you could write messages in terms of how you think about climate action, climate change action, as well as mitigation. So it's a fun way of sort of thinking about or starting a conversation about, hey, what's happening with our world in terms of climate change and how it's affecting women and humanity at large. Not just humanity, every species, every living species on this earth. So it's a great way to start it from a very simple thing as a photo booth. So very interesting, very interesting.
Definitely, we are all going to be touched by the impacts of climate change one way or the other. And of course, the message today really isn't that other people or other species aren't going to be affected. They absolutely are. But the reason that we bring attention to women is because of the differentiated and perhaps the disproportionate ways in which they are affected.
Tachi namgi shumidigu lok titaru shugo bela. Ta ngachani rajingi te kengin disu jumbigi kablo te dinalo ta sari te sacheni ritheni disu kara te jundi berura te dinalo ta ngachari loburgi te toram ta sanithuni te desagi kaachani gu disu pup now mola ta devadalo ngachi chi tachinagi sumid namisami sem gaila ta ngachi amsu dasha themi imachinla the kongi tendale the datadi the darimshin the tenbodalo konchi tendale mapa luju netang de chungkuchi nedendi ate darimgi datadi temtensa deongse lolap the jame mola chungkuchi me devadalo hanzumgi kengi nalo amchudilo tangache kengi jumudisul bewachin ta pubni ku shanyesa da tresani thun yedra bero the datha temichi imbachin 안디로 아니 암수들로 다타기 다 디숨기 같이 pat 몰라 한주 여가미가 몰로 디숨기 탱긴 두가면도가 디 같이 잠토토에 몰로 톱니 두가면도가 디 같이 다 내든 디 충쿠치라 디스에 다 같이 따겁디 데 카체 몰라 남게
Yes.
I'm sure the audience watching at the moment, tuning in live to BBS, I'm sure, hey, you guys are not talking about the rest of the runners. You guys talked about the first first place, second place, third place, and fourth place. But let's talk about the rest of the runners.
20 of them.
20 women. So just to mention, and I'm sure they have relatives and friends who are watching as well, who wants to hear their name, why they participated and whatnot, and their back history in terms of their profile. So let's continue just talking about the runners.
Yes.
I believe we reached Wangdi Forang.
We did.
Pema Ham,
Yes.
who's 25 years of age.
Yes, and I think at this point it's becoming quite the trend. They have all participated in so many races. So she has done the Bhutan Ultra Run. It's 25 kilometers in Phopjikala, and she also did the Laya Run. It's around 25 kilometers, and she's also a position holder there. Then she's also done the Black-necked Crane Festival open marathon, and of course she participated in the Snowman race selection as well. So we are not quite sure what her position is right now, but I believe she would be holding on quite well. So Pemal Hamo, she's 25. She's from Ondi Pajana.
Yes, someone to look for in this particular race as the race develops. We're not quite sure. As we get the information, we will update you. But moving on to the next runner from Chuka Songkhag.
Yes.
Namge?
So we have Lachimaya Lafchan. She's 31 and she's participated in the Royal Wedding Marathon. She has participated in the marathons that her institute has organized. And since she's also in the civil service, she's also participated in the RCC Marathon, which for some of our viewers might be quite new, but the Royal Civil Service Commission, in an effort to improve the well-being of our civil servants, does hold an annual marathon where anybody can run. And I believe women have done pretty well in the last couple of marathons that they did. So we have a reigning champion, and then we have quite a few other really, really excellent runners as well.
Oh, that's very good to hear. The next runner is Tashianse, representing Tashianse Zongkag.
Yes.
Dawadema.
Yes, La. So I've also had the pleasure of briefly interacting
Just
with...
to interrupt you once again, because I'm getting the update.
Not
The
at
first
all.
runner who, first position holder, probably from Gasa Zongkag, has reached the Zapsil junction. That's where the farm road starts, and as you can see in the image right there, that's the farm road, and she's running up at the very first corner of it. So from there on out, it's going to be another 4.5 kilometers till the road end. That's going to be the water station, second water station, and from the second water station, it's going to be where the trail will start, which is going to be another 3 kilometers till the finishing line. So the race is gradually coming to an end. Hopefully Gasa Zongkag, she has been maintaining the first position, and most likely, as we could see, she will most likely hold that position. So we could definitely, well, then again, we never know. But as of now, she is holding that position. On the right-hand side, of the screen, you see where the district volunteer is. That's where the trail starts. And that's the road end right there where the vehicle is parked. So right on the right-hand side of that, that's where the trail is going to start. The rest of the image that you're seeing is along the farm road, and as the runners will come up, we will see them. And obviously the first place is going to be Yande from Gasa Zongkag.
We never know.
We never know, but as of now, it seems, yes, as of now, it seems that the runner from Gasa Zongkag will be holding that position. Moving on to, let's talk more about our rest of our runners.
Yes.
We were just talking about Dawadema.
Yes, La. So Dawadema Tashianse Lemela Kelo Kechitu. Te mo na misame jimchira imbe te mo hema moro lopta da torim shite habi kaplera mo banju na luchama toni yuse imbe te timate mo desupche imbela. So she's a gold medalist in the Desup running competition,
Yes.
which is a big achievement. And again, I am marveling at the diversity of the backgrounds that our women runners come from. So Dawadema is also a Desup, serving the country during a time where it really needs somebody like her in Bella.
She's definitely representing the Desups and a gold medalist in the Desup running competition. There we see in the image right there the students from the Gasa school. I'm not quite sure which particular school these students are from, but they're there with the Bhutan flag, cheering on the oncoming runners as they will be coming up. That's in the finishing line. Wonderful to see students with their mask on, following the COVID protocol, representing the Bhutan flag there.
That is such a lovely sight. I'm sure the runners will be elated at the sight. And you know, if you're struggling, I think something like this is so special, so symbolic, really gives you the motivation to make it to the end. So let's talk about something Zangmo. 28. She's from Mongar, and she has participated in the Indo-Bhutan Friendship Marathon. And again, rooting for her to have a good race today. So next up, would you like to talk about Pema?
Sure. So there in the background we see that's Sampin Zangmo representing Monga. She's 28 years old. Moving on to the next runner, Pema Zam. She's 39 years of age. She represents Thimphu Songkhag. And Pema Zam is someone, an athlete who has competed in most of the marathons that have taken place here in Bhutan. And she has an impressive lineup of her activities in participating in marathons. She was first position in the annual marathon of PHPA from 2012 to 2019. She held 7th position in the Laya Run in 2017. She held 6th position in the Bhutan Coronation Marathon, which is 21 kilometers, in 2018, as well as 5th position in Bhutan International Marathon, which happens annually, which starts from the Gasa Songkhag's gate, I believe, the full marathon and the half marathon, mainly taking place in Punakha Songkhag. And I was there covering that particular event when Pema Zam had participated in that and came 5th position. She came 1st position in Bhutan Sports Festival Ultra, so 50 kilometers in 2019, which takes place in Phobjikha, and it's, I believe this particular sports event is going to be an annual event. Obviously, due to the pandemic and the COVID situation, most of these sports events have to be had to be postponed. But as we see with our second jab and the situation improving throughout the world, hopefully these wonderful events will be coming back in the future. So fingers crossed. She came 5th position in the Thunder Dragon Marathon, which is 21 kilometers. And she has an impressive lineup of her participation in many of these events. So that's Pema Zam, 39 years of age, representing Thimphu Songkhag. Next runner we'll talk about is representing Punakha Songkhag. Namgyel, would you like to introduce Namgyel Hamo, who is also from Punakha Songkhag? You're from Punakha Songkhag.
I'm from Punakha Songkhag.
Right.
Very happy to. Namgyel Hamo is 25, and from what we can see here, I believe she has done a bit of school activities in sports and running. So I'm assuming that this would be something a little more challenging for her, but so far we haven't heard of any incidences from our team in Gasa. So all the ladies seem to be holding up really well. So I'm rooting for Namgyel as well, especially since I already feel this affinity with her. I can't help it, as we're from the same Songkhag.
Well, I mean, I'm rooting for all the women who
Absolutely.
are participating.
Yes.
But definitely, hopefully she does well. The images that we're seeing once again right now, obviously the finishing end there with the students at the parking lot of Gasa Zong. And the rest of the other two images that we're seeing is the trail, the farm road. Apparently the runners haven't crossed it yet, but they will be very, very soon. Let's move on to the next runner. Dickie, would you like to introduce the next runner profile? Who represents
Shemgang
yes.
lebe watching the kilo KGG, the Pemalhamo imbesationi, the Pemalhamo the Lobdanalo, the Devi Kablo Moragi, the Nabisamiro, Rexa Chodus Kara, the Lobdagi Tendunalpa, the Tenu Seshuni, the Romaparo Moragi, Toa the Bochin, Dizumgi, the Tendu, Ledimnalo, Tserikinal, Namisamila, the Tehato, the Nale, the Tendu Beni, Namsami Mogito, Chimesationi.
Lasla, we have another 15 minutes before the live coverage ends. We do have here at BBS, we do have a lot of programs in order to celebrate this joyous occasion of the 10th year anniversary of the royal wedding. But as I mentioned before, you can keep yourself updated in terms of the race-wise on social media. Please check out the various pages at the Snowman Race Secretariat social media page, as well as BBS Facebook page, and Tourism Council of Bhutan social media pages to keep yourself updated. We're going to quickly run through the rest of the runner profiles before we end it, and hopefully at least the first place holder will cross the finish line before we end the live. That is my wish here, at least so that the audience could see that the first place holder has crossed the finish line. But we'll wait for that, I believe. Let's introduce the next runner, who's from Lindsay.
Adiki, would you like to?
륜질레 젠들베미 제가토미디 게로숨추소니 데 하지옹모이 메시션이 데 모에로 나미사밀라 다디즘게 제리키 데 젠두나로 데 게옹기 네세칼로 이루다 데 모로다 디즘게 데 젠두 이미날레 데 니통 춥딘로 데야 라야기 바주 젠두나로에 데 젠두 베차디베 데 나미사밀라 데 냠용 톰비기 데 암치레이 메시션이라.
And from Tsirang, we have Tashiang Zomla. She's 25 years old, and well, she says that she has participated in short runs during the sports meet in school, and we seem to have a couple of contestants today who have a bit of running experience but are really pushing themselves today. And I think that is also a testament to their determination to be part of this race and to really carry the message forward. And they're willing to really test their resilience, push their limits. So we have Tashiang Zom, 25, from Tsirang. Would you like to...
Definitely. So it seems like we're going to have a lot of runner participants who will be doing their personal best today.
Yes.
As they have some of them as they have very limited experience in terms of running. So that's a personal best for them, regardless of whatever time frame that they finish it in. As long as they complete it, it's going to be a personal best for them, which is commendable in itself. 17.5 kilometers at that altitude is quite difficult.
Yes.
Let's introduce the next runner profile, who represents Trongsa Zongkag. Her name is Namgizam, and she's also one of the runners who is just passionate about running but has no running experiences. She's 30 years of age, and she's there right now competing. We're not quite sure what position she's in, but we pray and hope that she will complete the race, and it's going to be a personal best for her. Moving on to the next runner, who represents Paro Zongkag. Diki, would you like to introduce her?
Paro bendigala. Las Paro lebewachin te kelo sumchuso chilami zencho zamui meseshuni te mugero ta jemi tehatomi de zumbera muge ta lobjana debi kablo ta lobjagi te seriki tenduna pa te tehato te dinal ke hatomi chirai meseshuni.
All right. And the last runner, obviously we've mentioned the oldest, who's Vivi, the youngest. Now the last runner, Tenzin Yangden, who is representing Samsi Zongkag. And she's one of the runners who stays in Thimphu, I believe. She's just representing Samsi Zongkag.
Right.
Due to the COVID situation, the runner from Samsi Zongkag could not come to Thimphu. But Tenzin Yangden, she's a graduate from Royal Thimphu College, and she has a few experience in running in terms of doing. I apologize. She's the 10 years marathon
experience.
I'm not well. Maybe the information that I have over here, maybe I'm misreading it. I'm not sure if she had attended Royal Thimphu College, but it says Royal Thimphu College 10 years marathon. So I believe she competed in that. Most likely she had attended RTC,
Yes.
but this particular marathon is 13 kilometers in terms of distance in 2019. We're not sure what position she came in for that particular event, but she has participated in it. She is this particular profile hasn't even mentioned her age, but looking at her, it seems she's quite young. maybe perhaps in the mid 20s or
20s,
early 20s.
possibly.
Regardless, she's one of the women representing the 20 Dzongkhags up there in Gasa at the moment, most likely really participating in it basically, and representing women, promoting climate change action, mitigation, as well as the effects of climate change, in terms of Gasa Sachu being swept away by the floods, part of the effects of climate change. And that list basically makes up the 20 runners. Obviously, the other runners, we talked about them earlier. Obviously, they are the fourth position holders, as well as the oldest and the youngest. We're not quite sure which point they have reached at the moment, but as soon as we get there we have it, the images on the screen.
Chala didi mosla the kanjuk tendu nale the tendu bemidisu sawana heptalo the tendu the juduni meseshuni karasa landila the tarigi te hatom disu tana gudi du sishuni the tarigi ngachi tendu beminal ko amchu kechi nale the lalu nyamnyung yeme lalu lobdana deptolo geha thopsa so lalu geyongi nese khalo geha thopsa so the lalu the Dzongkha ki nese khalo geha thopsa so khacheshuchi the lalu tari kutamba nyamnyungi tele tendu bemi gara the tarigi amchu kechi te khal du seshuni the dinalo ngachani amchu bebo ngachini khatule nosan tango kashdu sawachin the tarigi tor amchu disugi tendu bemidi lokchiga lo te khongi tari panyam gi thole mola ngachi tendu be ngachi ngoshi dishe nale thopchi se mola nyamdel shide tele ngachi imenale ngachi tari namshi jowa the tiwegi kangel tap madu kachira iru disu kara ngachi amchu disu ha koshimle te disu kangel dokthap kara ngachi besup sugi koda disu peni dime te de tari lermnalo amsu disu khatul matutu pela genku bashimle the namshi juje the tewigi neden kangel kachira iru dinaloe ngachi amsu disu genku basup sugi te nagi kowachi te lerm zimi disuge te kengopti te lengopti nami sami khaje mo namge the nale phaberu disumgi nalo amsu tendu bemi masuchi ngagi tari kotamba tendu bedai se mano beshimlela tari kotamba lokshuile inal ang tamba thopni soigi nosam chitadi te tehato gopte khache mola sange
Terry Barila, and I've been just told that the first place holder has just crossed the Zubsel top, which means she will be entering the trail, where the trail starts, and where the trail starts to the finish is 3 kilometers. Unfortunately, we only have about another 6 minutes of live coverage. But as I mentioned before, you can follow this particular race on social media platforms, and you can keep yourself updated. And hopefully, if we could find a way in terms of updating it here on BBS, we will do so accordingly. But as I mentioned before as well, today is a very special day. We have a lineup of programs and celebratory programs to celebrate this very joyous occasion of the 10th year anniversary of the royal wedding. But yes, as we've been told, the number one first position holder has reached the trail start point. Yes. Most likely we won't be seeing them crossing the finishing line, as we only have now 5 minutes.
Yes. And since we only have 5 minutes, I'd like to add a little bit more on what Odiki, Tachi Odiki gi lapto zumbela, ngachi amsu de suchi kha zomshinawe rangi nyamnyong nyetang de suchi chulu shegopti namseme kha chebala tita inkinale bewachin hanilu networking selapmela, having these networks of women to share our experiences with each other and also to motivate and inspire each other. So an event like this is an opportunity, but I would say that we have to create more platforms, more instances where women can come together and just talk to each other. And to really summarize the intersection of gender and climate, women are impacted by it differently, and we have to take extra care and give attention to how we design our policies so that our climate and disaster management is gender sensitive, but on the other hand, women make very, very important but often unappreciated and undervalued contributions to climate change adaptation and mitigation. And I have to end with some recommendations, some solutions to how we can go about it. So firstly, recognition is important. We have to collect gender disaggregated data. We need statistics on how women approach something, how they participate in climate change, climate action activities. We need education because it's very likely that less women are informed or have the knowledge on what is happening in the current climate change discourse, even though they have the lived experiences of it. So for them to be able to make sense of it, of course, number 3, representation, a seat at the table so that we can have women's perspectives, women's voices, gender-sensitive policies, and finally, promoting livelihoods. As I said before, we don't always have to think of climate action as planting trees, although that is very important. But there are so many other ways in which we can empower people, especially women, and that one way to do that is by improving their livelihoods so that they can make better decisions, more environmentally friendly decisions. So I hope that whatever we said here today gave our viewers and our audience something to think about, particularly on the theme today, how gender and climate, its dynamics, how they impact each other.
Well, I've been just updated that our live coverage will be extended to 11 a.m. So we have a lot more to speak about. But thank you. I'm sure we'll come back to it and we'll get into more details of how in terms of women, in terms of promoting women and women's sensitivity, in terms of position holding, resource that we can provide for women, education, can all contribute into mitigating climate change in their own ways. But wonderful news. We are going to be extended till 11 a.m. And the first placeholder, I believe, as I'm being told right now, has entered the trail part of the race here, and I'm sure we will get more updates on that. But I guess we could talk more on women and climate mitigation and climate action.
Yes. So what I just did was give a summary of the actions that we can take to empower women so that they will be more active as well as informed participants in the climate sphere. But before that, since we have an hour more, I would again like to take a couple of steps back and talk about what is already in place. So ta zonkana atsisa shugela. Teta ngachigi namshinyeta jurwa da pomogi danyam da tanji danyamgi kolle bewachin ngachiragi ta longai chajila 12 to 5 year plan na lue hisang sabera yula te ngachi inke na le bewachin national key result area se ngachita gelyongi begopki nyedun kachi toto chupti de chidobala teta anale nidi te chidi ta ngachi jungi namshinyeta jurwa dikadeve do tapni nagi kole chidu dele chidi ngachi gi podamogi panalu danyam dikadebe mambe basubega anigi kole ni yu latte anidi namsame kachima sewachin ngachiragi gelyongi chaji bomshodi ani longai gi chajidi imbebala titinalu hisang sabeti di yopta ngache namsame nyerangop chidu se ani chishuni beila titimase tangachigi zamling chutsokila sustainable development goals se tangachi ilo chilo nishu sumchu gi tsense ngachi gi zamling nalu ge khapte sukaragi kachibeni nagi torora ngachi nalu chaji chamcham zumbe ta zamling gi tonlu gi chaji zumchibe imbebala. So the 2030 sustainable development goals or SDGs nalwe so ngachi gi 포모기 다냠 텔레 남신이야타기 튼루 주마추니기 튼루 도톱 카치라 요가기 콜레 아니 좀베 옆다테 당가치기 게캅티 타치슈도 좀벨라 춤쿠치라 베루 nga치기 kachi ngachi jungi kachira ziru atara no sa bomb betandila teru zamlinge khap khatelo yan zumbe bede te ngachi gi anibe besuba chintani mese ani zumgi thilam danyam bedubala te ani ngachi garagi no sa tashina venyera gopchidula in terms of our alignment of national plans with larger sustainable development goals and particularly of note and particularly what's relevant to our conversation today is that of climate action, climate neutrality, and gender. And we have this really good opportunity to talk about how these goals are not separate from each other, but these goals are interrelated and they influence each other in Bebala.
Well put there. Yes, Diki, go ahead.
Yes. Namgilu the tokpa chungu chugela. The tarigi ko amchu kechi mola. Amchu kechi te panjugi nalu te tendu bemigi nale. Ta nale pa tarigi tendu de chachi judu chauchi te nale pa khonkhoragi ro labese sago na jubadol. Kholu gyamku thebe yogala yan tarigi lerindi da chamchi te anigi judu mola.
Mapati ta genku tepse ngachigi genku tepse labdati migaemo la ngachigi toro tepe bago be se ta tepe member tari ni nga be watchin la ko ya ju ko khalap tele namshinyeta semedi tane bi jude se ani zumgi kokap khalap ni gi tenu kokap chi thop pe gale ni rewadi ben ko lok jobe ti ta genku tepse memati ta khonrigi towa zumchi be jodela nga ya jobe ani be base nga gi ani be lapchi se anzumgi ani be beonowi gi no sachitando la genku tepse ata ani be begobe se mema te mapat ani chi imbeba la ngachi kara be romola ta ngachi penda ben juyop chi member chin namesame anzumbe sijulo tele ngachi social issues mola taribe bachin namshinyeta jurba me ani sugi kole khalap ni na se nyam cheu me bala tit kachim se wachin ngachi gi ani hako misu be bala that ani sichuna kachi yumidi tanjulu ranlura phong se mola
rangi tendala ra inse
tu denla te ani gi kole khora hachi kosu bachin se ani betsu bachin dam se sem gani mela.
Lasla, I think ultimately most of these awareness or promotional races all over the world, athletes race in order to promote something that's beneficial for the entire world. And I think this is one of the things where 20 women are coming from, representing 20 Dzongkhags. And just to start up a conversation, I believe, even just to start up a conversation about climate change,
Yes.
I think that's the first initial goal. Now, obviously, once they go back home or to their particular Dzongkhag, they'll continue that talk. And more people, if we have more and more people talk about this, there will be some sort of laws and implementations that could take into effect, hopefully.
There already
They already are. But let's get back to that. We have been doing this coverage for 2 hours straight now.
Yes.
So please, ladies and gentlemen, do keep don't go anywhere. Keep watching the live coverage of it. We will show the images from Gasa. Meanwhile, we will take about a 5-minute break.
A well-deserved 5-minute break.
Definitely. So we will now cut to the videos from Gasa, and we'll be right back.
Yes, good. You have to cheer up now, yes?
I'm getting. So I'm just getting the news, and as you see there on the screen, the first position holder from Gasa, Yande, has just crossed the finish line. And she has just taken about 2 hours, 2 hours and 11 minutes to finish the first place. Yande from Gasa. That's so wonderful to see, and as I predicted, she has maintained maintained her position, and finished at the clock in at 2 hours and 11 minutes. Now, obviously, that's not the official clock in, and they will have the official clock in. There are personnel from the athletes, from BOC athletes department who are clocking in, doing the timing and all that. So they will have the official time in terms of that. But as I've estimated, it has taken her just about 2 hours and 10 to 11 minutes.
Yes, and of course, the whole event today is such a collaborative and multi-stakeholder event. So we have the DESUPs on board, we have the TCB and the Snowman Race Secretariat leading the whole organization, but the event is also supported by many other partners. So to name a few, we have DHI, we have UNDP, we have United Nations Office in Bhutan, we have the WWF, and we have a couple of others. So to have the winner just cross the finish line, this is also, of course, big kudos to her, but the setup of the whole event, everything, there are so many people behind it, and that's really wonderful to think about, Shla.
Definitely, congratulations to Yande on as individual a female runner who has taken the first position. Congratulations to her. But as we have mentioned before, this is not just a race, but it's a race for climate.
Yes.
And 20 women representing 20 Zongha coming together to participate, to make awareness, to start up a conversation in terms of climate action. Such a wonderful thing to see, and especially since this particular race is being held in Gasa Zonghag, and a representative from Gasa, Yande, who represents Gasa, she's originally from Laya. Winning the race is even wonderful, isn't it?
Yes, that's so very special. I'm sure her Dzongkhak and the people there are going to be very, very proud of her. But again, we're so very proud of everybody who has participated and who has made this race possible. So do we have any word on the runners-up?
As of now, we don't have any word as to the second and third place where they're at, but I'm sure I will be informed of that. And as and when they do, we will inform the audience.
Absolutely.
And I believe we will go live till the top three, till the third place has finished the cross line, and then we will end our live broadcast.
Yes.
But in the meantime, once again, sort of to reiterate why this race is happening, okay, and why Gasa, why Bhutan, why women, and the overall general information, the essence of it. If we could reiterate that once again before the second and the third place come into the crossing line.
Right, so I'm just going to read off of what we see on our promotion posters for the Snowman race. So it's called the Ultimate Race for Climate Action. It has the sub-theme of women as drivers of climate action. And this whole event is inspired by the vision of His Majesty the King to protect the natural environment and preserve the living and unique cultures of the remote communities, so our highlanders, who are most adversely affected by climate change. And within that, today we have discussed the intersection of women and climate, and how the impacts of climate change not only disproportionately and differently impacts women, but how women can also have a positive role to play in the mitigation and adaptation activities. So a lot of things to contend with. And this is the thing about an issue such as climate change, because it does not exist in silos. And that's the same with the solutions that we come up with. So not only one government agency or not only one country can address it, but this really is a collective challenge for humanity, where all of us have a stake to be actively aware of the conversation and to really think about the role that we can play in it and to make things better. Because what else is there to do than to try to do something about it?
rightfully said, they're very, very essential. But reverting back to the race there, we see the second place runner just about to reach the finish line there. The students waving the Bhutan flag, cheering the racer, the runner on, and very soon there we will see the second place runner, who most likely is from representing Tashigang Zongkag. She will be crossing the finish line very soon. Oh, second place, I've been just updated that it's Bumdang. So that's quite interesting. She is
I
22
told
years
you.
old. Punso Wamo. That is quite surprising. I am flabbergasted at the moment just hearing that information, because we were just talking about that in terms of age and experience, and I'm surprised that Bumdang Punso, who's 22 years of age, have stepped it up a notch and is
Absolutely.
taking the second place.
Yes, and with these long distance races, I think you can never really say what's going to happen. You know, you call it the last mile challenge, and coincidentally, that's also a policy phrase. So, you know, you've got the last mile where anything can happen, everything can go so well.
There
at
we
the
have it.
beginning.
Punso just crossing the finish line in a very celebratory action and mood. And wow, just wonderful to see, as we were just talking about the last mile, right? So if you want to continue that in terms of the policy level, you were saying, again.
Right. So basically, it's a concept where everything goes so well in the beginning, and then you just have that last mile where you really struggle to achieve the outcomes that you want. And it's really, again, it's all the small things that make the big differences. So you're so close to it, but it just really doesn't work out. But anyway, that's policy parlance. So I think in the context of the race, the last mile is where anything can happen, outcomes can really change. And as we have just seen here today, Pinto coming in second, I think this girl's got a lot of fight in her, and she did it. And now hopefully she's getting some rest and some water.
Plus, the angniba temidi tashi gomache pumtale the funso ngomoi message the tachi bewach mui sagodi the angjibana de the angjibagi tato ju thanjulo the angnibanal tension shuni ngache kachira bero the tachile mugi angjibai me ngai bemisni me tangagi yalo ang tangba yanya judu yi sagonal hemisni me no wachin moya tato angnibagi sagonal mahimo mosla an badar ngache kachira bero semda no sam dindibe tashimle ngai besu semid no gobe angjibadi te angnibanal tensiono bomta le funso omola te morakelo be wachin te khechini me se shuni te tato angnibadi funso ngoi me se shunila.
It's also good to see the weather condition in Gasa Zongkak is quite lovely there.
Yes.
The sun is shining, the zong in the backdrop there, with blue skies and just beautiful weather there. But I'm sure for the runners, it is quite hot situation
Sweltering.
there, right? As we see on the bottom screen there, I believe that might be the third place holder. We just saw her passing the road. We will be updated as to who the third place holder is in which Zongkak, and we will shortly find that out.
Yes, and again, to just think about technology and our ability to really follow this race live, not only for people in Bhutan, but also for people who are abroad who might be interested. So the audience that we're expecting today, of course, we have people in the country watching BBS right now, perhaps someone live Facebook, but I think that the reach is going to be much more wider than that. And even though a lot of people from outside cannot come into Bhutan and participate in the race this time around, because of the pandemic. We hope that this gives them a glimpse of what's currently happening up there.
But I was also told by the Snowman race secretariat that this is obviously this is first of its kind, women, 20 women. But this is the start of sort of thinking about the ultimate snowman race,
Right.
which is going to be from Gasa Satu. And it might end, it will take the snowman trail.
Yes.
I believe it's 7 days. I'm not really sure about the details. I'm sure there's plenty of interested people who are watching who already know the details. But these details you could find out in the Snowman Race Secretariat website page or social media. But this is the initial start of that. And it's just wonderful to see that this event is a success, as we just saw the second place runner cross, and this is the third place, and I believe they're not quite sure, but I believe it's the Tashi Chozom, who's 35 years of age, who's representing Tashigang Zongkag. I will get a confirmation on that. She's also wearing a red cap, so I'm a little bit confused. She is. I have just been confirmed that she is Tashi Chozom, who is 35 years of age, who's representing Tashigang Zongkag. There we have it. That's the top three. And perhaps maybe we might even have, just perhaps, maybe we might have time to see the fourth and the fifth place come in. But that will totally depend on the time. But regardless, let's just, in terms of why this race is happening, you have summed it up before, but once again, let's reiterate it. Let's sum it up once again in terms of why this race is being held and why it's such an important initial event in the larger sense.
Yes. So, well, first of all, I think in order to bring attention to some issues, we have to do it in ways that are creative and to have a women's race, so a race where it's going to be only women racing, does pique curiosities, that does attract attention. And that was a very innovative idea, I would say, from the Snowman Race Secretariat. So why we're doing it? Well, climate change is, if not it is one of the most important challenges that humanity currently faces. And there is a huge need to, I like to call it, humanize it, because for most of us, climate change exists as an abstract concept. So yeah, it must be happening somewhere where there are oceans.
Just to interrupt you once again, where we see the fourth place runner, and she's from Ha, and obviously she was holding the second place. She has dropped back to the fourth place. But regardless, that's such a proud moment for her, representing Ha. She's come fourth place. Her name is Sonam Pema, 39 years of age, and surprisingly, as we have mentioned before, she has no running experience, but she came in fourth place.
That's amazing.
That is amazing. What a great feat for her to complete this race in fourth place, nonetheless.
Yes.
And hey, remember I had asked, does experience count? And I guess she just proved that experience does not count. It's just the willpower, passion, dedication, and just being a woman, I believe. The power of being a woman.
Well, I suppose it's many, many things. But we also, again, don't want to go into gender stereotyping, right? But anyways, Sange, if we have some time back to continue why this race is important and the fact that climate change remains an abstract concept, a faraway concept. When we do things like this, it's about local action. So today all these runners are up there, they're starting a conversation on climate and particularly on themselves, on gender. So it's an opportunity for them to reflect upon the nexus, the dynamics that exist between these two concepts. But at the same time, for people in Gasa, they have the lived experiences of climate change, but perhaps they've never had an opportunity to connect it to something that is happening in the scientific or global sense of the conversation on climate change, and it's their opportunity today to think about it. And again, to anyone who's watching it, I hope that we can inspire people to have conversations, because it starts from there. Action starts from there. Action starts from yourself, from our own homes. So there are hopefully some important realizations and benefits that spill off from this race to many other areas in our lives.
Now, these are the takeaways from this particular event, this successful event, this first time ever Zoom live coverage event with 20 women representing 20 Zonghugs event, Women Race for Climate. What's the ultimate takeaway? Obviously, you mentioned a lot of takeaway, but what is the ultimate takeaway from this particular event?
The ultimate takeaway, well, I would say that there are many, but the first is to realize the complexity and the interconnectedness of climate with many other areas in our lives. Deta zongkana atsitsi shuwachin la toro. Deta namshinya ta juwa semidi ngachi maam gira tati dugia khap nadi membe tati pharo jamsona mesame yesachika yanchin sayum chapsachika imese anzumgi nosa dubala titi tsadapule ra membe mola ta ngachi gi metogi donkara dele ngachi ragi mise nalurala churilo te gasa sachu chak bashinola titi ngachi gi nosara tametso mola lo khechigi hema te anizum chumda namshinyeta juwadi inkina lebewachin abstract concept di membebala ngachiragi misenalu ngachira metogi thonsara chumme te tari ngachigi nalu amsusu ju tigi kole janton nalu khalap anebebuda ngachigi zimisugi atsitsi towachita ti kachi semidi ina namshinyeta se juwa semidi ta anebebedome 야친 다 이칸이기 안개 도똥아 따도 몰라 때 안개기에 파주 베베 왜다 뒤추가 토디 숲다 아니게 임베바 세 아니노스탄 숲지오 온 숲아친 세노멜라.
Listen, I'm sorry once again to cut you off. I know it's very relevant and very important information that we need to disseminate. But we just saw the 5th place runner cross the finish line, and I'm sure we'll get confirmation as to who the 5th place is. Wangdi Zonghug. So
wonderful.
So it was the top 4, obviously finishing as we have seen. But the 5th place, it's a complete surprise for us. We didn't know who would finish the 5th place. Pemal Hamo from Wangdi Zonghug, and congratulations to her as well. Now, in terms of the rest of the runners, I believe there is a significant amount of gap between the 5th, maybe perhaps not, but in terms of our live coverage, we will end it at the top 5,
Nice.
And as I've been told. But before we end it, last minute thoughts. Let's once again, Namge, last minute thoughts in terms of this particular event.
I would say that this event is just the start of a larger conversation that we are going to have to create as a nation and also as citizens around climate. Bhutan is internationally renowned for its conservation efforts, but in terms of humanizing climate change, in terms of bringing climate change and making it relevant to the lives of people who are perhaps not thinking about conservation of forests or waste segregations, but have many other concerns, such as where they're going to eat from next, where they're going to work next year. All these are interrelated, and today we attempted to tackle the intersection of gender and climate, and there's a lot of complexities, a lot of dynamics within it, and I hope that we created space for thinking, space for conversation, and as I said previously, this is just the beginning, and I look forward to be part of more conversations and more such events in the future.
Beginning of many more in the future. Audiki, would you like to round up from your side as well?
Yes, the Tambara Tarigi, the Kanju Tenduginalo, te gyaga thome solo namisami te tashtele te dinalo gyaga thome lalu ro nyamnyong yeme lalu tari kutamba te dendu bemi me te khong ngalo te ngachi khatule la tashtele se shuni ta ngachi dinalo tari te migil chi la tari dizum giro kanju dendu goren thago migil chi di ngachi amchu disugi be ta ngachi namshe jujegi nalo dinalo genku chi thepchi ba te namshe juje sodol kachina digi pemba kachibina digi neba kachibina digi dokthap kachibina digi tablam kachibina dingachi amchu disugi be te pegopti goada to pegopti ta genku de amchu disugi bashimle goda pegopti kha choi suigi jedengi tolube te tarigi kanju tendugi lerimde te dev godin tata imese shuni da nale phabur ta khoma pa dekhatome kara amchugi nale te genku bagop irra dinga tawachin genku dia bhajumi disulcham memela dinga chambi se chitang rere shindugi te genku phobi mese shuni ta sangi chugi namshi juji kangil me chara bachi se member mo namgi chugi netang kangil me chara sego se member beshimle ngache kara chirup nyamrup ki thole namshi jude di donlen bege dikakta bedawachin ta ngache gyahab nalo rajin letembege te ken sari cheni churi theni disu kara ngachi kasup segi gemkhudi ngachi kara gi ba te donlen begop te kara gi gemkhu yese te shunila kadiche
Kadiche Latiki rightfully said, yes, it is a responsibility for all of us. But I can't stress enough why this particular event is happening, and it's been a successful event. We just saw the top 5 come in. First place holder from Gasa Yande, 5th place from Madi Phodrang. So what such a great event, and even more so because there's 20 women representing 20 Zonka participating in women Snowman race, women race for climate, and the theme-wise is such an appropriate theme. Hopefully this has sparked an inception in your mind to start thinking about climate action, mitigation, even from the grassroots level. Namge, our guest here at the studio, has been adamant about some of the ways we can mitigate, how women can mitigate, not just women, even everybody, all of us, how we can mitigate and start thinking about climate change. Snowman race is conceptualized by His Majesty the King, obviously, and hence on this very joyous occasion, the 10th year anniversary of the royal wedding, this event has been a success. I'm glad everything went well. Although we apologize to the audience, it is being done first time on Zoom, so some of the connections in terms of connectivity, image quality might have been not that great, but ultimately it has been good for the first time ever. On behalf of Bhutan Broadcasting Service, as well as Snowman Race Secretariat, Tourism Council of Bhutan, and our guest, thank you very much for coming to the studio. Thank you, Diki, and thank you to all of you guys, and have a wonderful day today in this celebratory day.
로추 코이 드챈디나 미세케 와자 미와 초다게 생nom니 다시 되네쇼 굴로 parche chumacho solo 태워내 봐쇼 두루 동양로 마주 제바 다신게 봐쇼 다시 될래 다시 될래 다시 될래 다시 될래 다시 될래 다시